The story begins in the palace of the heavenly demon cult, where the heir of the cult said that he understood everything, which means that even such a rare medicine will not help. In front of him stood an old man who bowed and asked him for forgiveness. For this he said that after all, an energy deviation is not something that can be fixed so easily. It is all his fault. He thought that it was all his fault because he was a mediocre disciple. Because of the lower core that was destroyed since birth, and a body that was unable to hold Internalki energy. He devoted all his time to the mystic arts. In this way, Harris to the rank of heir of the heavenly demon cult. All this was done to repay his mentor. He walked down the corridor, said that the rare medicine from Hay was useless. Where could he find something useful? A man approached Hyman, said that the time had come. Was he okay while he, the deputy head of the cult, was away? The cult heir named him Chen Huden, and agreed, and said that it had indeed been a long time. His journey through their land must have taken a long time. He said with a serious expression that since the cult leader and heir were unable to fulfill their duties, it was his responsibility to ensure the prosperity of the heavenly demon cult. The cult heir walked past them and said with a serious voice that he understood him and was grateful for his efforts. After a while, he said that it was impossible for this snake to just go on a journey to see how humans live, as long as he didn't do something. Didn't have time to finish speaking because he noticed something and said he didn't expect this. He never thought that he would dare to kill him in his own room. Blood flowed from his mouth and he said with a smile that now it was clear why this drink tasted so deadly. He also noticed a lot of people hiding on the ceiling and asked if they wanted to try it too. He even felt sorry that he had to drink it all alone. One of them loudly ordered to attack, and the hero of the cult asked, even if they slipped him this poison, how dare they attack him in his own room? Several people jumped towards him very quickly and attacked from different sides at the same time. Suddenly, he disappeared, and one of them loudly asked, when did he manage to leave the illusion? He appeared next to them and said that if they were going to kill him in his own shelter, then they should have prepared better. They all quickly ran towards him again with the intent to kill. The heir of the cult looked at them with a serious expression and said that he had warned them that their strength was insufficient. He released several chains with sharp tips, which pierced all the killers at once. A group of several people stood behind him and he asked, is this all they can do, after all, this preparation? He turned to them and asked with a smile, do they not think that their respected nephews would be disappointed by this? He called out tough elders who were standing in front of him and looking at him with worried faces. Hedging thought with a very worried expression that he had heard that the red crane's beak could melt an entire ox with just a pinch. However, Heckled still laughed after being poisoned. He was a real monster. The cult heir said that if his body was in better condition, he would have definitely left a hole in his head. What a pity. This traitor said that he also shared the disappointment of not being able to achieve his dreams. He thought that he couldn't just stand by and let an apathetic person who couldn't even learn martial arts become their next leader. All the elders supported him. The others very quickly surrounded the cult heir and took out their weapons. He looked at them with a smile and said that it seemed like their elders were quite timid. They were going to attack a brat like him in a crowd after poisoning him. Hajan pointed his finger at him and said that he could continue talking. If he had just properly fulfilled his Rolius, the successor of the cult, this wouldn't have happened. He said with a serious voice that he should stop saying such nonsense. Who is behind this? He was surprised by this question and asked what he was even talking about. This was a joint decision of the elders and the deputy head of the cult. He looked at him with a calm expression and said Thath knew that he didn't have the courage to do such a thing. Was it the master of black spirits and skulls, or the master of thunder and lightning? Or maybe the master of demon collector? This was an order from outside their divine cult. He and the elders sold out the cult in order to kill him. The master also ended up in this state because of his actions, right? Hajin became very angry because of this and asked loudly, how dare Heblam him for this? He strengthened his hand with energy and ran towards him very quickly. The cult successor looked at him with a smile and said that judging by his reaction, it seems like he was right. He thought that this was probably the price of trusting him. That damn idiot had finally stabbed him in the back. Huden grabbed him by the throat and slammed his back against the wall really hard. He said that no matter how much he hated him, they still trained under the same master. He was still the current leader of the heavenly demon divine cult. He would end his life with his own hands. He smirked at this and said that he had already planned all of this. Why would he continue this far? After all, because of his short-sightedness, he had become a puppet of external forces. Hajin became even more angry at this and loudly asked Yan Wonwei, how dare he say such a thing? Apparently, he didn't want Apis' full death. He calmed down and said that he didn't have to worry. He would correct his mistakes and ensure the prosperity of the cult. The heir of the cult, with a wide smile, began to laugh really loudly at what he said, which surprised everyone present. He said with a smile that they had tolerated him for so long, but still didn't know his true power. Since they had decided to kill him, there was one thing they should remember. Hudin looked at him and said that his tongue had become so restless. Before he died, he noticed something and asked loudly, with a very "Is this the demon dragon sword? Does he dare to cause trouble until his last moments? Does he seriously think he will let him pull his tricks?" There was a sudden surge of energy that sent him flying very far back. He looked at him in surprise and asked, when did he manage to gather so much mystical energy? Wui said, with a smile, that he had put all the mystical power he had into the demon dragon sword, which contains the will of the first heavenly demon. He was gathering mystical energy while defending himself from their ridiculous attacks. One of them said loudly, with a very scared expression, that they should form a defensive formation and use their internal energy to do so. There was a very strong, dark energy coming from his sword, and he said that it was too late. He released a huge amount of energy using the Hellfire technique that burned the soul. They all started screaming very loudly in pain because of this attack. The energy he released was so powerful that it destroyed the building they were in. When we sat on the ground and thought that no matter how miserable his life was, he did not expect such an end. The snow here is the same as that day when he was a child. Some children beat him up and told him that he would spare this freak who sees ghosts. If he says nonsense again, like he carries an evil spirit, then what happened will happen again. He heard that he also has a destroyed core, an orphan with a destroyed core, who claims to see ghosts. He picked up a stone from the ground and thought that he just told the truth, but all he got in return was hatred. To live in such a disgusting world, he had no right to sit still. They were very surprised by this and started to beat them back. After a while, Wanwi was sitting outside by the wall and said that these freaks don't know when to give up, just like them, lost souls. When will they finally leave him alone? He was very surprised when a man came up to him and said that he had special eyes. He turned around, crawled back a few meters, and thought, when did Hemanich 2 come up to him? He didn't even feel his presence. He has expensive clothes and an even more expensive sword. However, he ran quite far from crowded places if he came on purpose. He chuckled and said that he was probably interested in his cursed eyes. He can do whatever he wants. He thought that in a world where hatred and disrespect were natural, he didn't mind his life being split in half. The man walked up to him and asked, can he just take his eyes? When we asked, he looks like a martial artist. How can he refuse? He doesn't know if these eyes can be useful to him, but he can pluck it out and cook it. The man put his jacket on him and said that these eyes, it's not a curse, but a blessing. Some people like him are born with a blessed upper energy core or a special soul. Such people have always done great things. He has the potential to become more unique than anyone in this world. Wuni looked at him in surprise and thought that these words were so sweet that they sounded like a lie. However, more than that, he felt warmth. For the first time in his life, the man asked, so, will he follow him? After receiving the agreement, he asked, does he have a name? He refused, and he asked then to immortalize the moment of their meeting. How about the name Wanwi? He thought that in the hands of salvation, he found a reason to continue living. He did his best to help his master. Because of this cursed body, his master was in a state of energetic deviation. The Sichuan clan. This is one of the 6 great Murmur clans, and is also the ruler of Sichuan Murm. To the west of here is Tibet, where the Potala Palace is located as well. Ashingai, the seat of the Kunlun sect. To the south are the Janhan sect, the Heavenly Dragon Temple, and the Five Poison sect. Finally, to the north of here is the front line of the central Myram Plains, opposing the Heavenly Demon cult. The vanguard of the Tanklin troops is led by the Storm Troop. The leader of this troop is known as the Storm Swordsman, Tan Hon. Together with the Storm Troop, he founded a branch of the Tan Clan, the Nine Dragon Division, the economic and strategic center of Sichuan Myram, Nine Dragon County. The head of the clan, the Dark Lord Tan Moonhuk, entrusted the army to him. Hosen had 3 heirs. The mother of 2 of them was Namong Sunyong, his legal wife. They were the first child, Tanujin, and his third child, Tanyucheng. However, the mother of his second son was a servant, a mistake made while drunk. He was reborn as an illegitimate child of this clan. The rest of the clan treat him badly. Even though he is an illegitimate child, he is still the son of the patriarch and a candidate for Thine. A servant stood in front of him and loudly asked, how dare he say such a thing to the matriarch? He should go and beg for forgiveness. She ordered that no food be delivered to their pavilion. Now they will all starve. Mick sighed in displeasure and thought that he could not believe that even the servants looked down on him. The servant said loudly that perhaps the mistress would take pity and give him a lighter punishment. He wanted to say some pingles, but he didn't have time because he couldn't stand the feeling anymore and threw him back a few meters with a very strong blow. He said loudly, with a very displeased expression on his face, that he was giving him advice out of good intentions. If he continued, he wouldn't be able to help him anymore. If he touched him even once more, he would have been trouble. Despite Wanwei's threats, he continued to beat him, which is why he already started begging for mercy. He called him handsome and said that he hoped that he would do the right thing, since he was his mother's friend. He understood how he felt, didn't he? He agreed with bruises on his face and said that he would never forget his kindness and would serve him and the second lady diligently. He leaned towards him with a wide smile and asked so he would bring what he needed, right? His expressions scared him a lot, and he said loudly that he would prepare everything right now. He bowed and said loudly that he would bring it soon. He looked at his hand that was trembling after the blows and said that he couldn't believe that his hand was shaking so much because of those blows. Just how weak was his body? Not only was his body weak, he also had no allies in the clan. This was partly due to the mistress's bullying. At this rate, he wouldn't advance in the clan. All he could do was accumulate internal energy and show off his abilities. However, there was a problem. The energy of the Tan clan was in this body. Since the cuts of a heavenly demon master were demonic arts, he couldn't use cultivation methods. He thought that, however, there were probably many in the heavenly demon cult who came from the Tan clan and had spent thousands of years there. This would have a bad effect on the upper meridian, and his body was not prepared at all. Remembering about placing the energy in the innately strong upper meridian, he would transfer it to the illusory space and manifest it to its full extent. A suitable space would be the 1,000-year-old secret archive of the heavenly demon cult, the heavenly demon cult's archive. Fortunately, by using divine reincarnation, he didn't lose most of his memories. In his situation, the most suitable cultivation method would be the poison dragon technique. After the Tan clan's poison specializing warrior group was expelled, they became part of the heavenly demon cult. This cultivation method allowed them to learneth demon cult's poison arts. Instead of using demonic energy, they practiced poison energy as well as the Tan clan's cultivation methods as the basis for using demonic arts. While the Tanlan was fighting the demon cult, groups that used poison in a special way would appear within the factions. If he used a demonic art through the poison dragon technikai, no one would suspect anything. The problem is that he would have to endure excruciating pain in order to obtain poison energy. In order to replenish this energy, he also needed to absorb higher level poison. The protagonist smiled widely because his eyes were engulfed in energy, and said that anyway, now that he had used Thoiper Meridian, his dead eyes had finally opened. How long were they going to keep staring like that? He had seen the ghosts of the elders he had killed, and said that he knew he was quite attractive in his past life. But he would still feel awkward if they kept staring like that. Hajin called him by his previous name and asked loudly, "People always said that he was crazy, but how dare he talk to him, the vice chief of the great heavenly demon cult, in such a tone. One of the elders grabbed the chain that was on his neck and said loudly that he should release it him, because he couldn't handle their anger. He looked at them with a smirk, and said that their reaction really made him happy. They asked loudly with a displeased look, how can he be so bad, even after death? They declare a rebellion against him. He grabbed one of the chains and said that since they conspired and decided to kill him, they should be prepared for the consequences. Because of this, Hyun fell to the ground and he asked, he already knows what he is capable of, doesn't he? He raised his head, saw a large monster standing behind him, and thought that it was the Ghost King. Could this be that power? MC said that if he stays like this, he won't even be able to ring. Don't you think so? He looked at him with a very displeased look, and asked loudly, all he wants is information, right? If he wants all the information he has. He refused it, and extended his hand to him, and said, Thoth has enough people who have this information. He started using his energy, which caused the ghost Huden to be quickly sucked in somewhere. He turned it into a small ball, and told the elders that it was a ghost sphere. It was filled with the grudges of the dead, and was much more powerful than most strong poisons. He threw it in his mouth, and said that this would now be his lunch. They were all very surprised at what he just did, and he felt a lot of pain because of what he just ate. They looked at him in surprise, not believing what was happening, and asked, is he still able to stand after this? Did he forget how he raised hell, even after taking in the poison energy? The MC looked at them with a wide smile, and said that now the vice chief of the cult had become fertilizer for his poison dragon, and it was time for them to make a choice. Would they obediently tell him everything, or did they want to be eaten? After that, he held a handful of ghostly orbs in his hand and asked, so they were just following the orders of an organization known as the Association. They loudly agreed, and said that it was true. He thought that the organization with no name, the main threat came from their members. One of them loudly said that they really showed them very strange things. He asked them to believe them. He thought that the heavenly demon cult was an unorthodox cult that worshipped its ruler as a god. The elders of this cult, who worshipped the heavenly demon, conspired with them, and decided to attack him, the Aroft cult. So compared to the fear of the heavenly demon, the fear of this organization was stronger. He said Thoth believed that the orthodox or unorthodox faction was controlled by outside forces. He thought that Thetor, that towered in the sky, the people who surpassed all of humanity and were trying to conquer the tower, were apostates, extremely powerful demigods, capable of mind-boggling things. They were considered natural disasters. This means that their leader was much more powerful than he imagined. He ate the rest of the orbs and said that the precious time of digesting so much poison and gradually getting used to it, this was something new. 2 months later, in the ladies' room, Sunyong smashed her mug against the wall in anger and asked loudly, is he sure that this sirs didn't get food? Hinza knelt in front of her and said that they wouldn't dare to go against her will. She asked loudly in an angry voice, then why is he living as if nothing happened? He was supposed to fall at her feet and beg for forgiveness in less than 3 days. Rumors were already circulating throughout the manor that she had killed him. The leader would be back soon. How was she supposed to look him in the eye when he heard this before they continued? What did that freak ask him to bring? He said that he wanted to obtain information about the current situation in Yanu, particularly the unorthodox and demonic factions. She thought with a dissatisfied expression, that frick had never been interested in sack things, but he had changed too much in these 2 months. Could there be someone behind him? Even if he was less, he was still the son of the clan patriarch. If he made a good impression during the patriarch's visit, he would be able to obtain a position in the clan. No wonder there were so many annoying people hanging around him pursuing this goal. She slammed her hands on the table and loudly said that John and Yuchin should be wary. You can't let that damn freak get away with this. Another servant came to her and said that her son had come to see her. Seong turned to him and said that it meant that he had already finished his training. Handsome stood up and said with a smile that he should leave. She said with a displeased expression that if he noticed anything strange about him, he should tell her. Immediately, her son entered the room, and with a small smile, asked how she was feeling. She thanked him and said that everything was fine. He had worked hard, so he should sit down. He had achieved his goal, right? He said loudly with a smug face that although this was not the final result, he had almost mastered the hidden weapon. She was happy about this and said that it was great as expected of her son. He became more serious and said that on Thiwe, here he heard about this Surus. He didn't repent, even after what she did. She took a deep breath and said, talking about him gave her a headache. She didn't know what that idiot was planning. Yu Chung said that he seemed to have someone helping him. She looked at him with a little surprise and asked if he thought so too. He said that hadn't have enough internal energy. He didn't eat or drink anything. He couldn't last 2 months. Someone was secretly bringing him elixirs every night. Sun clenched her hand into a fist and said that she had thought about that too, although she didn't know what kind of idiot was helping him at all. He said with a sly smile that that was why he had to participate in the patriarch's visit. She was a little surprised by this and asked what was the point. He continued to smile and asked if he was playing on a large scale, then his patron would do something too, right? She thought about it and said that it was indeed so. Someone had to bring him the elixir so that it would be strong enough. The person behind him who was claiming praise would definitely show up. He agreed and said that once he showed up, they would capture them all. She asked with a smile. However, if that freak caused trouble, wouldn't the patriarch think that they couldn't even control him? Yang said that it didn't matter. What could that idiot do? If he caused trouble, he would just stop him like a loving brother. Even if that freak tried to do something, the strength of a person who had only studied the Tonklin's energy arts, which even servants could use, couldn't possibly be that high, right? After a while, when we sat in his room and asked, did he say 6 years? Hans agreed and said that he had heard that Thiedman cult had been in a civil war for 6 years already. He thought that 2 months ago. He had told him to check on Thelatis developments in Yanu. It felt like a long time had passed due to the reincarnation through the primordialdine wheel. But it was much more terrible. It was 6 years of complete despair. He said that the heavenly demon hot disappeared. It was an evil trick by the demon cult. There was chaos because they didn't know when the heavenly demon would return. The protagonist thought that the master might be alive. At least there was a small hope, although to go to Tianan immediately, he didn't have the strength, information, and means. He was especially lacking in information. It seemed that the traders were using all methods to find the master. Since he couldn't be found according to the available information, he had to look further. He came up with a plan for the patriarch of the Tan clan to visit the 9 Dragon clan. He heard rumors that the Dark Lord Tun Moonhawk wanted to create a special security unit. If he joined this unit, he would be able to use the clan's spy network. Then his chances of finding the master would increase. While he was practicing, a small spider came to him and said that it seemed like he was on the verge of mastering the 12 strikes of the fierce eager. The protagonist thought that this was an advanced basic technique taught to wandering warriors. A martial art that uses fists, palms, fingers, and feet as deadly weapons. If one strengthens the body, pushing it to the limit through extreme training using the poison dragon cultivation technique, taking the spiritual elixir, and purifying the blood and channels, one can achieve this. He looked at the table with a dissatisfied look and asked, those pills again? The spider agreed and said that he couldn't help the young master in any way, since the security was too strict. He said that if he was of no use, he would turn him into a spiritual elixir, too. The spider was worried about and said that he asked to believe him. He had done his best. He started eating the pills, agreed, and asked if there was any other news. For example, where is the Dark Lord now? The spider said that he didn't know when he would arrive, and about Yu Chung. He had just returned. MC took the rest of the pills and said that the Dark Lord's visit was approaching, so it was logical for him to appear. Is that all? The spider said with a serious look that he had seen him and his mother meeting secretly and discussing him. This caught his attention, and he asked if they had a secret meeting about him, and what did they talk about. He listened to this and asked, so they will try to get rid of him during the Dark Lord's visit and think that there is a secret patron behind him. Apparently, they read too many dramas in their youth. However, for them to recommend him to the security He was thinking about getting there, but they want to do all the work for him. However, he does not like this state of affairs. They still try to humiliate him. Yan came to his room, knocked on the door, and told his Nomito the young master. He was a little surprised by this, turned to the door and said that he can come in. He brought a bowl with a strange liquid, and said that the lady said that it was a tonic for him. We was confused by this, and asked, didn't she say not to give him anything to eat? He said, in a worried voice, that she said that he had already thinking, and as a reward for his suffering, she gave this to replenish his energy. He chuckled at this, and thought that this old witch was too predictable. He sighed in displeasure, and said that he could leave it here. Hin said with a worried look that she wanted to see him drink it. He started drinking it in front of him, that from the looks of it, this crazy woman mixed poison in it. However, since he had already mastered the poisandrigan cultivation technique, it wouldn't work. He was surprised when he tasted it, and thought that this was actually 100-year-old ginseng, mixed flowers, and a small amount of madness poison. There were even purification poles. This elixir was so wonderful that just one dose would help restore energy, and even enhance it, but with such a large amount, the elixir would infect the brain with toxins. As expected, there was poison in it. The ghost Walvery, angry at this, and asked loudly, how dare she give the young leader poison? This fool from the Namong clan must be crazy. The spider asked loudly, how dare she slip such a thing to the master? He looked at him with a displeased expression, and mentally said that he should follow her and find the sorcerer who helped her. He agreed, and immediately jumped out the window to do this task. He put the cup on the table, and thought to drive him crazy with poison, and then use magic to turn him into a puppet. Is this her plan? I wonder how strong her sorcerer is. He turned around and asked if he had already drunk it all. Then why was he still here? Hunim said with a surprised experience that there was a martial artist waiting outside. He was sent here by the lady. He walked outside and was met by a man who said that his name was Ten Gong, a martial artist assigned to train the young master. Although it was not for long, he hoped that they would get along. The protagonist looked at him and thought that he was known as Thuarier of the Fierce Wind. This is the Storm Squad's most valuable martial artist, and one of the 5 strongest martial artists in the 9 Dragon Division. However, he is so lazy that he has long since stopped fulfilling his duties. Why did he suddenly become his marshal? Artist Gong showed him 4 fingers, and said that he was asked to train him for 4 days, before the clan leader visit. He looked at him and thought, so what? He agreed because he was too lazy to help with the preparations for the festivities. Regardless, this woman amazes him. By appointing him as a martial artist, she made it seem like she really cared about him, all the while wanting to take over his mind in order to humiliate him in front of the clan leader. He wonders what kind of plan she is following. She has something like that? He asked with a serious expression. What will he teach him? Gong calmly said that he was asked to train him for 4 days before the clan leader visit. He won't show up twice, so he should pay close attention. Immediately after that, he started walking around him at an incredible speed. MC saw it and thought it was a shadow movement technique. He stopped next to him and said that this is a shadow step. He looked at Hyman, asked, is this the technique that you can use? He agreed, and said that this is the basis of the shadow step arts that the young master uses. He sighed in dissatisfaction, and wondered is she going to exalt her son by comparing him to him. Gong said that the shadow step is perfect for using with poisons or hidden weapons. He left footprints on the ground, so he should just follow it. He looked at it and thought that he moved like a shadow while leaving clean footprints on the ground. He deserves the title of the Furious Wind Warrior. He was about to leave with a small smile, and said that he showed him how to do the shadow step. Now he should try it again. He was about to say something else, but did not have time because he said that he had already learned everything. He looked at him with a calm expression, and said that he had already learned the technique. This surprised Gong, and he said that he didn't think so. After all, he had never studied martial arts, and the shadow step was quite difficult. It took about 10 days for the new recruits of the storm troop to just learn the form. Even a genius like him needed 5 days, and to truly understand the meaning of the form, it took 3 months. Wui chuckled at this, and thought Did he just call himself a genius? He said, "What do you mean? That's how long it usually takes." Gong started. Till even said that if he understood, he should continue training. He was dissatisfied with his behavior, and said that he already said that he learned it. His words also irritated him, and he told the young master that this is not something he can just see once and repeat. He asked if he wanted to bet on it. He bet 30 silver coins that he got the shadow step right. This caught his attention, and he asked, with a small smile, "Is he no interested?" As far as he knows, his monthly salary is about 10 coins. He should bet at least 3 months of his work to turn this into a real bet, right? Gong said that shadow stuff is an invaluable martial art created in the spirit of the Tan clan. He wants to bet money on such a thing. He looked at him with an arrogant smirk and asked his martial artist, "Is he scared?" With these words, he was able to hurt him, then turned around and said that Thurir of Fierce Wind himself said that it took him 5 days. It's okay. He will continue to train on his own. Gong asked Kadam to stop with a big smile, and said that he was pretty good at hurting egos. All right, he will take the money, as payment for disrespecting martial arts. The protagonist looked at him with a smile and asked, so he agreed. Right, no way, can't go back on his words, okay. He was about to say something, but at that moment, he used this technique and very quickly appeared behind him. He was very surprised by what happened and turned to him. He held the money bag in his hand with a smile and asked this martial artist, was he going to drink today? Maybe he shouldn't spend. This surprised him even more, and he asked, did he manage to take his coins too? This is simply impossible. He is deceiving him. When did he manage to learn the shadow step? He calmly stood in front of him and said that he had just learned it. Had he ever had the opportunity to learn martial arts before? Gong asked with a shocked expression. Is that true? But how could he do this after only seeing it once? He looked at him with a satisfied smile and asked, does he really not believe in him that much? Does he want him to show it again? Or does he not have any other techniques to learn? It's just that this technique was very boring. He's probably too genius for this, right? Not only are his pockets empty now, but his confidence is also empty. Gong said loudly, with a very dissatisfied look. He should wait. He will win back the money, right now. He knows many more difficult secret arts than Shuup. He will see how far he can go. MC said with a smirk that he must be pretty confused. Not only because of what he did with Shadow Whip, but also because of the stolen wallet. He has never personally studied martial arts, but in his life as the heir to the cult, he has met many famous martial artists. This allowed him to memorize the form of many basic martial arts. The ghost of an elder flew to him and asked the boss, was it good, wasn't it? He agreed and said that no matter how talented he was, it would be impossible to steal his wallet, since he was much stronger than him. Unless of course the ghost helped him, was very easy for them. Now it was time to empty his new teacher's wallet and his martial arts. 4 hours later, we was repeating new techniques, and said loudly, this is a butterfly chasing the soul. How about the physical arts of the stormer, the 12 rotations of the storm? Gong was very unhappy about this, since he was spending his own money on this towing back his losses. The ghosts looked at this, and said that he might be a heretic, but he was still sorry. This was his unfortunate fate, being associated with the heir of a cult. This reminded him of his suffering in life. He asked with a satisfied smile, is he ready to continue? He fell to his knees with a sad expression, and said that Heck would no longer borrow money from the bank. He asked with a smile, then what about the last one? He gritted his teeth with a dissatisfied look and asked, didn't he realize that he had no money left? He pointed to the many bags of money, and said that that's why he wanted to propose to go all in, like a real man. He asked with a worried expression, was he going to sell him into slavery? The protagonist said that that wasn't quite true. He had unimportant martial art that he wouldn't be able to copy so easily. It was the storm dance. He was very surprised, Bithis, and called out to the young master. This offended Gong so much that he began to emit a strong aura, and said in a serious voice that he could still understand the other techniques. But the storm dance was the soul of the storm squad. Putting this technique up for debate was like disrespecting the squad. which is the core of the 9 dragon diva. He asked him to refrain from mentioning it. MC looked at him and thought that he might seem simple. Buth shouldn't forget that the one standing in front of him was a warrior of the fierce wind. From the storm squad. He asked if he didn't have the right to learn the storm dance. Gong continued to emit an aura, but he calmed down and said that of course he had the right to do so. Since he was the son of the head of this branch family, he had shown Ito both the first daughter and the third son, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to show it as well. He called him by name and said that he wasn't talking about his rights as the heir. He asked if he admitted that he could learn it. This surprised him and he was about to ask something, but he stopped. He looked at him with a serious expression, called out his name and full title loudly, and asked if he thought he was strong enough to become a storm. Did he have the right to continue the mission of the storm squad? Gong was very surprised by what he asked and began to remember the past. He thought that after that terrible defeat, their squad had fallen into decline. However, they could become a true storm again. It had been 20 years, the storm mission that he buried in his heart. He never thought that he would hear these words from the young master, the weakest of the heirs. He said that his words about the storm mission had stirred his heart. However, he had just proposed the storm dance on a bet. He couldn't believe that he was actually sincere in his words. We clutched his chest and said loudly that he was in great pain. 4 hours ago, when he first met him. If he had asked him to teach him the storm dance so that he could continue the storm mission, would he have agreed? He was about to run away after showing him the shadow step once. He turned away from him with a confused look and said that he couldn't deny it. So he had deliberately mocked him so that he would accept his bet and acknowledge him. Now I see he had heard rumors that he had changed. However, he also sees that he has actually been hiding his intelligence and strength. The martial arts he showed him, including the shadow step, are martial arts that would be difficult to perform with his body 2 months ago. 2 months is not enough to accumulate infiniteral energy, meaning he has been accumulating energy for a long time while hiding it from the lady. It was only just before the Dark Overlord arrived that he decided to reveal his hidden claws. This is truly a devious plan to deceive his family. The protagonist thought he knew that this was considered a compliment in the Tanlin, but it was still strange to hear. The ghosts beside him said that this idiot must have seen the true value of the heir. He can't help but admire the most skillful order in the divine cult. He became angry because of this, and wondered if he should turn them all into. He asked if he would teach him this technique or not. He was thinking about it, and the ghost said that there was no point in resisting. After all, no one could resist the sweet words of the heir of the cult. This was their reason why he made so many people swear allegiance to him. This made him even more angry. He decided to make pills out of them, turned around and grabbed them. Gong, with a serious expression, said that he would teach him the true storm dance. He turned to him when he heard this, bowed, and with a small smile said that, in that case, he a member of the Tongklin requests teaching from his master. A smile appeared on his face because of this. He bowed too, and said that he, a member of the storm troop, the warrior of the furious wind, accepts his request. He began to use the technique and said that, unlike the previous martial arts, the storm dance would be difficult to learn so quickly. He looked at him with a smile and said that he was offering him a change of bet. He was embarrassed by this and asked, "Are they still lurking?" He said with a big smile that they would bet on whether he could learn it by the end of the day. The loser would buy the winner food and drinks. He chuckled at this and said with a smile that he would owe him dinner. Then Sinsk was confident that he would win this time. Now he had to watch carefully. He jumped high into the air, controlled through currents, and thought that the former members of the storm squad had promised not to interfere in matters concerning the inheritance of the head of the family. Therefore, even if he continued the storm, he would not be able to support him as the next heir. But for the rest, it would only mean one thing. A new storm would soon appear that could join them on the way, and with whom they could drink. After a while, Gong turned pale from the shock and thought that he didn't care about the lost bet. After all, the greater the Ound Master, the better it would be for everyone. However, this damn guy didn't even share a single drink with him. He at the many plates of food that he quickly ate, and wondered what kind of dinner this was. The owner of the place came up to him very happily and asked if he needed anything else. He said with a very sad expression that he was asking for another bottle of alcohol. He couldn't watch this while sober. The MC looked at him and asked if he was a drinker. Then they should have gone to the Dragon Tower. Gong got upset about this and asked loudly if he even knew how much it cost. This bar was also quite expensive. It was the most popular restaurant in these parts. He started drinking the alcohol that was brought to him and asked if he was willing to foot the bill, even if it was a little expensive. But who knew that he wouldn't enough to spend his weekly food budget? He thought that going to an expensive place like the Dragon Tower wasn't in his plans either. There must be a lot of people here. He left a small dark mark on the table and thought Thath had to hold back for 2 months because of the ban that Sayong had placed on him. However, he could not postpone his plans any longer. Ghosts with worried faces said that this was a binding spell of the revered demon god mythos. Did he come to this place to leave such a mark? He thought that he needed to let their comrades who were currently in despair know that he, the heir of the cult, was still alive. After some time, a spider sat on a branch and said that it had already been 10 days since there had been any suspicious encounters. How much longer should he sit and watch? He noticed a person walking into the building and asked, "Isn't this the uniform of the Qingchangjiang sect? What is she doing here? I see this woman must be the clan's first daughter, Qin. How will things develop if she meets the daughter of the Naming clan? He hopes that this child is okay. Now is not the time to worry. Need to make a good impression on the young master and ask him to be more lenient." He jumped on the wall of the building she entered and heard Sun Young ask loudly, "Is she going to break her mother's heart?" Kyujun said loudly that it was nothing compared to the pain she was causing Wui this time. She locked him in a room and forbade him to eat. She said with a calm expression that she doesn't have to worry about him since someone is secretly taking care of him. She needs to focus on the Dark Lord. These words made her even more angry. She slammed her hand on the table hard and asked in an angry voice, "Is this an excuse to treat him badly?" She's sure that she didn't even know about the assistant's existence before punishing him. Didn't she try to kill him? Sun became worried about these words and asked why she was so angry about which illegitimate child. Is she even her daughter? Kyun looked at her with disgust and asked, "She never forgets to remind of his illegitimacy, right? Thench will reveal the truth to her." She started to leave, and her mother became very worried about this and loudly asked to stop. Her daughter didn't stop, and she said with displeasure that she had always been too soft since she was okay. But it got worse once she joined the Xingqianjing sect. How was she going to take her father's place in this case? The spider looked at this with a confused look and asked, "How should I report this to him? This family, is it a complete mess?" Sayong slammed her hands on the table really hard and said loudly that it was all because of that freak. She didn't need to wait for the Dark Lord to visit. There was someone there, right? She had to leave immediately. The spider looked at her and asked, what was she planning to do with the young master? She must be going to see us. At the same time, the protagonist was practicing in the square and thought that it had been 10 days since he had made his spirit follow her, but there was no news. There should have been connections through the revered god mythos, even in the 9-dragon district. Either those people had left, or they were unable to act due to some kind of restriction. In any case, the situation is clearly not good. He needs to hurry up and become stronger. Gong looked at his practice with a confused expression and said that he was doing well and was doing well with weapons. He looked at him and asked, "Ish, still dissatisfied?" He looked at him with a confused expression and asked, "Does the person from the Tanlin teach us weapons instead of stealth techniques and poisons? That says it all. Why did he learn the storm dance in the first place?" He thought with a slightly worried look that the people from the Tan clan were fixated on one path. He said that this technique, off-throwing flowers, is the Tongo technique. That's why the movements were so disjointed. He looked at him in surprise and asked, "Did he notice that?" MC said with a smug look that he was a capable student after all. He asked with a dissatisfied look, "If he was such a good student, then why hasn't he learned to be humble?" He thought that many sects and clans often have very complex movements in their techniques, because they are trying to express the enlightenment of martial arts in a physical form. However, the Tan clan is known for its hidden weapons and places. The similarity between the two concepts is that they both use tools. Because of this, the Tan clan's martial arts system ensures that the tool that was used can be recycled and used again in other ways, even if the martial arts technique is different. Although the clan's weapon techniques are not flashy, they are not inferior to others in Thalist. Of course, these are just the basics for effectively using poisons and hidden weapons. But the 9 heavenly sword he wants to learn is also divided into parts. If he learns the Tan clan's weapon techniques, he is sure that it will help him better master the 9 heavenly demonic sword. Will he be able to more effectively use the sword? That was only an unattainable dream in his past life. He is really sorry, but learning poisons and such will come much later. Gong noticed his wide smile and asked worriedly, "What is he planning?" By the way, Miss Kun is back. Was started to remember her and thought that she was the only person in the 9 Dragon Division who treated him like family. She was a relative who was deeply etched in the memory of the previous owner of this body, his sister. He received many letters from her even after he replaced him. Her letters were full of care and affection for him. He really hoped that she would maintain a good relationship with him. However, he was going to become Seong's enemy from now on. Will she take his side when thought happens? Gong said that she was going to visit the elders first, so it seemed like she would visit him tomorrow. He said that he had better hurry up then before his sister arrived. He looked at him and asked, "Does Huant to start today?" Then what was he talking about last time? The protagonist said with a big smile that he had already done it at the same time. Yech asked, so he had lasted 10 days without failing. The servant kneeled in front of him and agreed with it. He praised him for it and threw the bag of coins next to him. The servant thanked him for it and immediately ran out of that room. He remained sitting in his place and called out to Moon. The man in Thaddeus asked, "Does he need to get rid of him?" He agreed with a smile and said that he took poison 10 days ago, so Hessel'd be completely poisoned. He thought that even if he told him about it now, this freak would not have Tomato fully recover before the Dark Overlord visited. It seemed that Gong was putting a lot of effort into training him. However, even he needed 8 days to learn just the shadow step forms. No matter how hard this freak tries, he will barely have learned the basic forms by the time the Dark Overlord visits. The problem now is his sister. She had a fight with her mother because of this freak as soon as she returned. So, there might be problems with the plan. When she turns 30, she will become the official heir of the 9 Dragon Division. However, his sister is too soft to take on such a role. After all, she joined the Qingchanjiang sect and didn't learn the martial arts of the Tam clan. She can't be the heir to the Ninidragon Division, so it's only fair that he take on that position. A servant came to him and told the young master that a letter had arrived from the White Pavilion. Yu Chang turned around and allowed him to enter. Hunnam entered their room and said in a worried voice that it was from young Master Wunwei. He took the letter from him and saw that it said that this freak should fight him. He became very angry because of this and wondered, has this bastard idiot gone completely crazy because of the poison? Perhaps this is a trap. A letter that can poison the reader easy to obtain from the Tan clan. However, it seems he didn't do so. Is this really just a challenge letter? He opened the letter and read that it said that he wanted to redefine their awkward relationship through this duel. He wants to let go of all the grudges through this duel as martial artists. Yuch thought that he must be planning something. Either way, he needs to make a puppet out of him. He turned around and said with a smile that he should owe him, that he appreciates his offer, but will refuse. Hyun bowed to him and agreed. 2 hours later, he received a letter with the inscription, "Coward." He clutched the letter in his hand and said that he was sure that he would continue to send such letters, so he should stop accepting letters from the White Pavilion. The next morning, he saw exactly the same inscription on the wall. This angered him and he told the servants that one of them should immediately go to the White Pavilion and tell him that he would meet him tomorrow at noon in the second training hall. He would personally cut off his head. After that, The servant came back and repeated what he said. The protagonist looked at him and asked why he waited so long. If was going to accept his offer anyway. Gong looked at him in surprise and asked what he had written to provoke him. He'd thought about it and said that although he could guess, he looked at him with a sly smile and asked how he was going. Tob come the air, if he had so little patience, he wasn't going to stop him, right? He also smiled and laughed and asked why he would do that. It would be incredibly exciting. He smiled even wider and said that he would then fight his brother and beat him half to death. After a while, Hyujin came to Yuchin and loudly asked what kind of fight was he talking about. He turned to her and with a displeased expression said loudly that this freak was the one who started making fun of him first, so she should deal with him first. She was surprised by what she heard and asked if was the one who started it. For this reason, she very quickly reached the White Pavilion and wondered, however, what kind of ghostly energy was that. Now that she is near this place, she can feel it completely. There are Thessicians everywhere. Traces of death energy and poison residue are clearly visible. It looks like a madman's haven. She felt a person standing behind her, quickly drew her sword and turned around sharply. MC who approached her was Ablato. Stopped the blade of her sword with his hand. She was very surprised by this and called him by his name. He called her sister with a calm expression and said that it was a rather cruel greeting. She suddenly stepped back, apologized, and said that she was going to stop, but did not expect him to try to block. He thought that she attacked him when he used the poison dragon technique, which is why he reacted late. If she reported his poison level and fighting ability, then his plan would be over. If Seong sent her to scout him before the battle, he didn't have time to finish his thought, because Quinn said with a kind smile that she was very worried about him because of Mother. She was very glad that he was okay. He thought that Shell looked at him like his master, the only one who cared about him. He grabbed his head and said that it did not look like was sent by his stepmother. She asked worriedly, however, what kind of energy was this that was coming from him? He hadn't gotten involved in any dark deeds, right? When we began to concentrate the energy in his hand and asked, did she mean the poison arts he had been training in? She covered her mouth and asked, was this ghost energy and poison energy? Was that possible? He agreed and said that it was a cursed poison. He thought that he had Actualagis combined the mystical energy with the poison to make it look like that it would be difficult to hide his death energy from people's eyes, so he had topiced it off as something else. She looked at him with a surprised expression and asked, why did he need a cursed poison art? He said with a calm expression that it was the only poison he could use without the help of his family. It seemed that she wouldn't believe it. Is it unnatural for a member of the Tan clan to neglect morals in order to achieve greater power? He took a fighting stance and said that if it was a problem for her, she could try to stop him on her own. Jin was surprised by this and said that it seemed like he had changed a lot. He thought that Heckledon let her continue to protect him, like she did with the old owner of his body. Even if their relationships furred, he needed to set a clear line. She covered her face with her hand and said that that was right. Everything had changed now. She removed her hand with a wide smile and said that now it was clear why Yukin's mother was so worried about him. His words awakened an extremely strong thirst for battle. She began to emit a strong energy, and he wondered, is this energy and the desire to kill? She laughed and said with a satisfied expression that he really exceeded everyone's expectations. The protagonist looked at her with a serious expression and thought that from what he understood, this energy was the soul stream, the seed of the barrier breakers. In the middle of them, there was most likely a heavenly ghost stream. For a while, he had doubts about why she, the first in line to inherit the Neen Dragon clan and the most promising of all the youth in the clan, would join Thekking sect. Soul streams, which Granthire, owner unrivaled talent, are considered one of the conditions for becoming a barrier breaker. However, as his name suggests, soul streams are rooted in the soul itself. So, they evolve along with the owner as befits the traditional Ching Chang method, which prioritizes training the heart. Moreover, the heavenly phantom stream, Isa stream, that requires constant battle. Combined with the Tonklin's teachings of doing everything for the sake of victory, this made her an unstoppable killer. He said that before discussing his energy, she should have told him about hers. This is quite alarming about her. Hyujin sheathed her sword, stopped emitting her energy, and asked for his forgiveness. She bowed and said that she forgot why she came here in the moment. It was rude of her to point a sword at him and interrupt his training. MC looked at her and thought that it was so easy to remove the bloodlust caused by the heavenly ghost stream. Chim Chang's training was taking its toll, but she herself was quite strong. After that, they went to drink tea. She really liked the taste and said that she often drinks tea in Qingchangjiang, but she had never tasted such a delicious one. He said with a wide smile that this tea came from Heavenly Eye Mountain. She said with a satisfied expression that she didn't think he was so good at it. She started looking for something and said that she brought him something. It's Tangulu from Mission. He likes it, right? He thought that he didn't like it very much, but he should probably thank her instead of the previous owner of the body. He ate it and said that it was really delicious. She was happy to hear his words, but he kept seeing the silhouette with the evil smile behind her and thought that he couldn't get used to it. He really found it hard to believe that she was the same person who had such a strong killing intent before. He asked what brought her here. If she was here to interfere with his fight with Yuch tomorrow. Kyuan looked down with a thoughtful expression and said that it was partly true. However, she came to apologize since she knew how he treated him. He asked if she thought that instead of their apology, he would accept her and just forgive them, right? She agreed and said that however she still wanted to apologize. She was truly sorry. Wui took a deep breath and said that he was still going to fight him. She said that she was worried that he was pushed into this, but now she sees that it's actually part of his plan. However, is he sure about this? She understands that he is quite strong now. But Yushin is no pushover either. She has also heard that he is planning something else. He thought that she seemed to know about their evil intentions, but she didn't know the details. He calmly drank his tea and said that he also had an ace up his sleeve. He thought that since they slipped him the madness poison, they thought that activating their sorcery would break him as planned. Eugene said that even if he wins, he must not forget about their influence in the house. If he loses, Mom will do everything to make sure that no one finds out. He said with a smile that she is worrying too much. After all, it was he who suggested it too. She can come to the second training ground tomorrow. She didn't understand why he needed this, but she still agreed. The next day, at the second training ground, there were many people walking around selling various delicacies. Some of them were taking bets on the winner of the fight that was to take place today. Hyujin looked at the scene with a worried look and said that no, she understood what he was counting on. The protagonist walked up to her and said with a smile that she would definitely have trouble hiding this news. Moreover, their dear brother seemed to be nervous, so he set up an arena where he could have fun. Gong was also in the stands and said with a smile that there were so many people here. A member of the Wind of Justice squad, Tongt and Tangent, came up to him and said that young Master Wunwei had certainly worked hard on this. He looked at them and asked if they had come to watch too. He said that they had come here for work. There was a huge crowd gathered to watch this battle. They were here to keep order. He smiled and asked anyway, who did he think would be the winner? Jin stood next to him and said that it was obvious. He may have Trinith, young master, but it had only been 10 days. Tonto said that it was clear that young Master Yu Chang would win. Gong looked at them with a wide smile and said that he was sure that everyone here thought the same. But he wasn't Theon who initiated this duel. Isn't he curious why he did this? At the same time, Yu Chang looked at the servant, who bowed to him, and asked, "Is that all?" He agreed and said that the young master spread news of the duel and even opened the doors so anyone can come and watch. He said with a dissatisfied expression thought. He was just teaching him a lesson. It looked like all the slackers in town had come to watch this. The protagonist looked at him from the other side of the arena and asked his dear brother what's got him so upset. Is he worried because he lost his mother? Why doesn't he go look for her so he doesn't have to worry so much? He can wait for him. He said with a dissatisfied expression that his mouth was as dirty as his mother's. He should shut up since he doesn't want Tobe contaminated by his filth. He started teasing him and said that a mama's boy should only listen to praise. This Medaic, even more angry, and he said that he should shut up. The MC repeated after him, in a mocking tone which made him very angry. He suddenly stood up from his chair and insulted him loudly. He jumped into the arena and loudly said that he should come here. He will bury him and make him shut up forever. The audience looked at him and asked, did he come first? Wasn't his brother the one who initiated the battle? He calmly walked up to the arena and said that his brother was so easily angered. Everything was going in his favor, so easily they stood in front of each other. He bowed and said that he wished the White Pavilion came here to receive a title, but still wished him a successful fight. Yuch looked at him with a wide and evil smile and asked, is he trying to show respect? Did he get scared as soon as he entered Thurna? Hoojin watched them from the side and thought that it looked like he angered him with a private whisper technique, but he should have kept it to himself. The spectators who were standing nearby said that the second master was mindful of his manners, unlike his opponent. She thought that his behavior made it seem like he was the one accepting the invitation to Thediel, and not the other way around. In any case, what really matters is the outcome of the battle. He looks confident, but Yu Chang is a rising star at home and is considered a genius. He shouldn't underestimate him. They came closer to each other, and he said with an evil smile that he was sure that these insults were all he could do. The protagonist also smiled and asked, is he just here to talk? These words hurt him again, and he said with an evil look that it was time for them to begin. He doesn't know what kind of dirty trick he has prepared, but he may not even count on winning. He threw something on the floor with a sharp movement of his hand, causing a fog to appear in the arena. The people looked at it in surprise and asked, what kind of smokescreen is this? Because of this, nothing can be seen. MC stood, still calmly, and thought that he didn't expect this. Using a hidden weapon without any cover would be meaningless. However, he doesn't recklessly attack him, and even considering him weaker, he didn't hesitate to attack from behind. He expected nothing less from the Tan clan. He used his skill to dodge the attack, and a surprised Yu Chang asked loudly, was that a shadow step? He stopped very quickly behind him and asked, did he really forget that Gong taught him this technique? He tried to attack him again, but Wu Wei dodged and asked with a smile, did he really forget about it? He turned around with a dissatisfied look and asked loudly, did he learn this too? He was still his father's son. Even if his mother was a he got into a fighting stance and thought that, however, the shadow cover step was just skillful foot movements that created a shadow chi cover. He would show him the true shadowy cover. He calmly stood in place, while Yuch ran around him very quickly, and thought that this was a technique that did not allow the opponent to hear and see him. A real dissolution into the shadow. Now I understand why he is called a genius. It will be difficult to track him in the smoke. He delivered his blow, but missed, and turning around he saw the protagonist standing in place. He started to attack him many times with his hands, but he couldn't hit him, and he thought that unfortunately his mastery of the shadow-covered chi wasn't high enough to hide from his dead man's eyes. Moreover, he was oozing with bloodlust so much that he could track him down even without using his eyes. Jin looked at this and said that he didn't think that he was already that good at the shadow cover step. Tonch said that he also noticed that Lord Yuch's shadow covered chi had improved. It seemed that he achieved this through close training. However, it still seemed more like a game of tag. Could the second son simply avoid his attacks until the smoke cleared? However, even if that happened, it would all be in vain if he couldn't land a good hit. Gong laughed and said that he taught him a move for just such an occasion. They looked at him and asked, did he do more than the lady asked? He looked at them and asked, doth he think he is that scary? They laughed at this and said that they know he is the best in this world. Yuka kept trying to attack him, but he missed and said loudly that he was running away like a rat. He thought with a serious expression that the smoke was clearing. He should put an end to this. He was going to take pity on him and only break his legs, but it was his own fault. He created several clones and thought that even though he avoided his attacks using shadow cover step, he wouldn't be able to avoid this attack. He used the pear blossom needle shower sky nymph flower scattering technique. Qin looked at this with a worried expression and thought, is this pear blossom needle he wants to kill him with this attack. MC said with a big smile that this is rampant. He would have played with him a little more. But it seems like now is the time to end this battle. He created a dome of wind around himself that reflected all the needles that were thrown at him. The audience was very surprised by this and asked loudly, "What kind of wind was this?" She immediately realized that it was a storm and thought that it was the technique he learned yesterday. Even she couldn't see it clearly because of the ghostly and poisonous energy. Now she realized this was the kind of fighting technique he was training. It was the storm dance. Yukin was also surprised when he realized this and said loudly that it was impossible. He learned the storm dance, something that his sister and Heckle didn't learn. Wui said with a smile that, fortunately, someone provided him with an excellent teacher. He should thank him, right? He ran up to him very quickly and delivered a strong punch to his opponent's stomach, using the stormful punch technique. This attack sent him flying to the side very hard, and he hit his back against the wall. The audience was very surprised by what happened and asked, "Did the young master just lose in one hit? It wasn't a good blow?" Jin was very surprised by what happened and asked loudly, "How did he use the dance?" Bong said with a calm expression that he had warned him that he had everything he needed. He was still shocked and said loudly that this was not some trifle that he could brush aside. He agreed with this and asked with a smirk, "What do they think now? Is his wind different from the one they once served?" He asked, "Does he mean to say that the young master has the same talent as the clan head?" He looked at the arena and said that it was too early to say so, but he learned to create a storm in 10 days. This is still a hasty conclusion, but shouldn't we keep an eye on him? It may be just words, but Hess said that he would take care of the storm squad. How could he not start to have hopes? By the way, why is he still creating wind? The protagonist called out to his sister who was standing next to him and asked if she would fight him. She was shocked by this proposal and looked at him. People looked at her and asked, "This girl, is this Q, the heir of the 9 Dragon family?" He returned from Qingcheng to meet the Dark Lord. So many years have passed that he did not even recognize her. Does this mean that the young master who learned the storm dance and the strongest recruit of Sichuan are going to fight? This battle will be more interesting than his battle against Yu Chang. He definitely hit the jackpot today. They have a chance to see the skills of the mistress. They began to actively call her name. Tongt said that the situation seemed to be getting out of control. Jin asked, "Do you think he has a chance to win?" Gong, looking a little worried, said that he should not face her face to face. What was he planning? He thought that he showed off Storm, defeated his brother. This would already secure his position in the family. If he defeats her, he can even claim the position of heir. But if he loses, all the attention will go to her. The lady also seems to understand that this is a bad idea. Qian stood there with a worried look and wondered what he was planning. If they were alone, she would not have to worry about her reputation. However, in this situation, refusing would bring shame on their family name. Spirit started laughing behind her and asked what she was worried about. After all, he was the one who proposed it to her. Her heart demands a fight. She should trust her desires. She refused and thought that no, she should worry about his position in their family and apologizing to him for treating her like that. MC called her again and asked if something was bothering her. Was she worrying too much about a fight that did not even lead to death? She should just enjoy it. These words helped her make up her mind, and she said that she could hardly hold back. Immediately after that, she jumped into the arena, and the audience loudly said that she finally got up into the arena. Hujin suddenly turned around, bowed, said her name and said that she is the heir of the 9 dragons of the Sichuan clan, and a swordsman training under the Qingchang sect. She was trained by the Blade Master, Wu Ho, and specialized in the technique of the Alone in the World and lightning-slashing blade. Her peers from Jiang, who bestowed upon her the title of Thousand-Petal Beauty. She hopes to have a good battle. One Wei also bowed, stated his name, and said that Hu Was, the second successor of the 9 Dragon family of the Tan clan. His teacher was the strongest Storm Knight Gong, and he also learned the storm dance today. He asked for her mentorship. The audience was very happy about this, and said loudly that the challenge was accepted. He said with a small smile that she seemed to like it. She agreed and said that she had not been this excited for a long time. His smile widened, and he said that he was also a little excited. She took out her sword with a big smile, and said loudly that her dear brother wanted to fight her. He got into a fighting stance, began to create wind around himself, and asked, "Is she ready, right?" Hoojin agreed, ran towards him very quickly, and said loudly that they should begin. He looked at her with a little worry, and asked, "One beginner's given the advantage of 3 strikes." He used the storm dance technique, the early Windblade Sealand. Their attacks collided. She looked at him with a wide smile after slashing with her sword, and said that it was thoroughly Windblade Seal that stopped her sword that day. She quickly jumped away from him and asked, "Does that mean she can swing her sword as much as she wants, right?" She ran to attack very quickly, and said that he was the one telling her to enjoy the battle. Then what advantage is he asking for? The protagonist looked at her with a serious expression, and thought that she was fast. He used the art of shadow cover, shadow body drift. She looked at him and asked, "Does he even know Yushang's skills?" Her performance really exceeded everyone's expectations. She defeated his shadow copies with 1 sword strike, and said loudly that, however, he was still not very skilled at it. He blocked her sword strike, and was sent flying back several meters. He smiled and asked, "Was Ching Chang's swordsmanship really that strong?" Qin looked at him with a wide smile, and said that it was not it. After all, he decided to hide the energy she saw yesterday. She also has her secrets. He began to emit light energy, and said with a smile that it was excellent. Since she said so, then he should show it to her. A very strong wind appeared around him, and he used the poison dragon technique, Ghost Dragon Release. She looked at him with a happy expression, and said that this is exactly it. She ran towards Hyman, said loudly that this is the same poisonous aura and ghost energy. She began to emit her energy, and said, that this is what she wants to fight. She will allow him to strike, but only once. She will allow him to strike, but only once. MC looked at her with a serious expression, and thought that her aura had changed beyond belief. All the killing energy emitted by Asul's ghost strike had now merged with the aura of Ching Chang's sword. It's strange. He feels like he's looking at a demon, who's dressed as a beautiful angel. However, if he's the one being offered the first strike, why not accept? He ran towards her, and thought that with one strike, he could take control of the battle. He missed with the first strike, and Kyun said that his storm that he used to defeat Yuch Chan was now much stronger. She abruptly slashed with her sword which he dodged, and she said that however it was too obvious. She began to slash quickly with her sword and said that the movements of the storm dance were too wide. When he faced someone stronger, he needed to be careful. He stopped her for her advice, and thought that the explosive speed of the storm dance, mixed with the short and precise arts of the Tan clan, created a killer technique. However, it only worked against equal opponents. Against a stronger opponent, it would be risky. Then he needs to use a technique suitable for multiple attacks. The strikes of the fierce tiger, and combine it with the storm dance. Kun looked at him and asked, did he also learn the strikes of the fierce tiger? We ran up to her very quickly, and started to attack, and thought that the strength of the storm dance was in its speed. He could use the momentum to speed up the rotations used in the strikes of a fierce tiger. Tujin happily slashed with her sword, but he jumped up, and she missed. He somersaulted very quickly, and was about to attack her with his foot. She dodged the strike, but he ran after her and thought that he needed to be even faster. She asked, did she understand that he was trying to maintain the flow of his attacks? But by giving the opponent distance, shouldn't he expect a counterattack? She began to throw many quick strikes, and use King Chang's sword technique, an incredibly fast blade. He got into a blocking stance, and used his hands to block her strikes. He stared at her, and thought, was he too hasty in his attack? This was his chance to break through. She was surprised because he dodged her attack and ran towards her. She continued to slash her sword with a wide smile, and said that this is what she understood. This is what makes a fight worthwhile. They continued to slash quickly, and she said that he should continue to entertain her. The crowd of spectators cheered as they fought, but one of them turned around and looked back. Yukon recovered from his defeat and asked, what was going on? The man who noticed him asked loudly, "Has the young master recovered?" He stood up, looked at the arena, and asked, "Not only did this freak knock him out, but he is now fighting on equal terms with his sister. Mother hasn't returned." His servant said that she hasn't returned yet. He thought that his sister would definitely lose, but the longer this dragged on, the higher this freak's position would rise. One of the spectators next to him said loudly, in a surprised voice, that the young master still didn't give up. He thought with a worried look that it was impossible, but he couldn't let his sister lose. They continued to fight at this time, and the protagonist thought that he had created an opening. Now he needed to continue the offensive. Unexpectedly for him, Quinn kneed him in the chin and asked, "Is he too focused on the sword?" "Isn't he?" thought with a serious expression. "Is she attacking without a weapon? This flow is different from the Ising Cheng style." She looked at him with a wide smile and asked, "Is he surprised by this? Right? She learning the Ching Chang techniques now, but years ago, she was studying the arts of the Tongkla." He continued Totak and thought that Ching Chang's straight sword and the Tongklan's 100 strikes method that aimed to expose the enemy's weaknesses. These two opposing martial arts perfectly merged and were used in an attack. This was the power of Fozel's Ghost Strike. He tried to kick her, but she used Shadow Step to appear behind him and delivered a surprise word strike. He managed to dodge this attack and jumped to the side. He was breathing heavily due to fatigue, unthought that he could taste bile, and with every beat of his heart, his body was becoming more and more numb. Now he understood what it was like to fight using martial arts. She looked at him with a calm expression and said that he was indeed different. His attacks were not like the standard ones like other beginners. However, in reading the inimmune dodging, he was like an experienced warrior who had fought in hundreds of battles. He laughed because of this unthought that he understood the basic movements. His past life, when he had no fighting energy, reading his opponent and predicting their moves. This was his main fighting style, developed from the desire to survive, because he was against martial artists who were capable of killing in one move. However, having martial arts, he forgot one important thing. When he uses mystic arts, he does not use it strictly according to the rules, and martial arts are no exception. Kuhn looked at him with a wide smile and asked why he started smiling. He has such a beautiful smile. It seems like he has something in mind. She started to attack and said loudly that she wonders what her dear brother will do now. She wants to find out quickly. Mick put his hand in front of him and thought that she was not aiming for vital organs. The principle of Azul's Phantom Strike is to drag out the fight. Combined with her concern for him, it led to the appearance of weakness. He is grateful for the good intentions, but he has no reason not to use it against her. He used the technique strikes of the fierce tiger, ripping tiger claw. Hyujin was pushed back by this attack, and Shiseido with a slightly worried looked at it was not bad, but he was repeating himself. She was surprised when she felt wind currents and thought that the wind deflected by the strike was circulating in front of him, restricting her movements. He learned to use the height of the storm in such a short time. She noticed that he swung his fist filled with a large amount of energy, unthought that it was dangerous. He struck very hard and released this huge amount of energy. What happened really surprised all the people watching this fight. Wui stopped in the arena and raised his head with a serious, not only because the young master was much stronger than they expected, but also because of the glimmer of light that was just now. He called his sister with a serious expression and asked, "Is this fair?" Jun stood in front of him in a cloud of dust and asked, "Did he see it?" She wanted to hide it until she figured out this trump card. She pointed her sword at him with a smile, laughed, and said that, however, since he noticed, it can no longer be hidden. She released her energy, and the surprised spectators loudly said that this was Sword She. She had already entered the early peak. No wonder she was the heir of the 9 dragons. Yuch was very happy about this, started laughing loudly, and said that she was good. Her brother had always believed in her. He thought that this idiot had no chance of winning. She said with a crazy smile that he probably already understood that, since she had started using Sword, she could not let the fight drag on. The protagonist agreed with a calm expression, and said that, dragging out a fight with someone weaker than her, would be considered extremely impolite. She said that she was very sorry. She wanted to enjoy the fight even more, and see what he was hiding. He looked at her with a serious expression, and thought that as she said, the fight would end in the next moments. His early windsword seal, that had blocked her blade until now, could not block Ching Cheng's sword entwined with chi since he could not use his mist parts. He only had one option. She looked at him with a happy expression, and said that it seemed like he had come up with something. He looked at her, and asked if she really thought so. She agreed and said that she could feel it. His heart was beating incredibly fast. He said with a small smile that he was probably a little excited. In such a situation, only a man obsessed with martial arts could. She didn't understand him, and asked what he meant. Only those who are crazy about martial arts can call themselves real fighters. MC was a little surprised by this, and said with a small smile that he understood her. He was a fighter, after all. He thought that after being reborn in this body, he was too focused on mastering martial arts faster. But the life of a fighter he envied is not like that. The emotions he felt while fighting her. How will he be able to express everything he has learned so far? How well will martial arts work on his opponent, the excitement and fighting spirit, which is exactly why he wanted to become a fighter, to feel all this. Hujin asked with a smile. Can they continue their fight? Judging from his breathing, he was fine. He agreed with a calm expression, and said that she could continue. Immediately after that, they ran towards each other very quickly. She immediately raised her sword above her head, and looked at him with a wide smile. We began to concentrate his hand and thought that as expected, she was aiming to finish everything with one blow. That meant Hugh would have to use his most powerful attack in the form of Storm Dance. He would combine it with spectral energy and then compress it. He used the Storm Dance, Thunderwind, Cannon Shot techniques. They attacked each other at the same time, putting a large amount of energy into their strikes. He felt a strong pressure, and wondered, isn't this enough to fight an early peak-level martial artist? He shouldn't think about all sorts of nonsense. Either his plan would work, or it wouldn't. Their attacks caused a very strong gust of wind to rise up. Yuch looked at Thurna with a wide smile, and said that it was disappointing that the gap between him and his sister had widened, but that Frake wouldn't be able to get up after such a blow. He noticed a glow that could be seen through the smoke, and doubts began to form. The protagonist continued to emit strong dark energy, and thought that he had been waiting for this moment. The second, during which Theki left her sword, the moment during which it turned into an ordinary sword. He was able to break her sword into many pieces. Looked at his trembling hand, and thought that he couldn't even move his hand. Usually you can win by simply breaking the swordsman's weapon. But that's not the end. She, the owner of the ghostly Flow Azul, will never stop because of such nonsense. Of course, this also applies to him. Hujin got into a fighting stance, and he immediately jumped towards her, concentrating dark energy around himself. He thought Thath would put all his remaining energy into this one strike. He used the technique of Storm Dance, Thunderwind, Cannon Shot. She started laughing loudly with a big smile and said that he was really the best. She also started concentrating energy around herself to attack and use the technique of Rising Dragon method. Rising Dragon strike waterfall, hiding in the rising sun. Tonj said loudly, with a worried look that they were getting too carried away. Jin was also worried about what was happening and said loudly that they would both get seriously injured. They were about to stop them, but they noticed something and stopped with painted faces. They were both about to attack each other, but someone came between them and said that it seemed like the two of them had played enough. They both stopped, using their energy, and the man who stopped them asked if they were going to meet the clan head in the hospital bed. Hujin immediately bed and said that she welcomed the head of the 9 dragons. MC looked at him and thought, so, this man is Thelador of the 9 dragons, and his father, Tanhosen. He also bowed and greeted him. Ghosts appeared next to Hymond, recognized him and said that he should be careful. He thought that after the decline of the storm, he would stop cultivating, but he had become much stronger. He turned around with a serious expression, and thought that Noah understood, even if this organization was strong. They were still a small, special squad of the Tan clan. It seemed to him that the squad leader would be about as strong as an elder in the heavenly demon sect. However, this man was so strong that he couldn't even guarantee victory against him in his past life. Gusan looked at him and asked, "Is he dissatisfied with something? Does he have something to say to him?" When we started shaking his head in denial and wondered, was he really staring at him that hard? He looked to the other side and said that he was just wondering what he was doing here. He asked with a calm expression if there was a place in the 9 dragons that he couldn't enter. He said calmly that he was just worried that seeing him with such a weak martial arts skills would offend him. What he said shocked the Virian present, and he felt it. Hujin, like everyone else, was very worried about it and quietly asked him to stop. He thought it was a reasonable reaction to such a response from the leader, especially from an illegitimate child, who basically means nothing. However, after seeing the residual memories of the body, he realized that his father was a man with a capital letter. Busan smiled because of this, turned around, agreed, and said that he did not feel anything while watching his fight. The protagonist looked at him with a slightly dissatisfied look, and thought that these were the words of his real father. He stopped and said that anyway. He heard that he had changed a little. It turned out even better than he expected. He looked at Yuchchang, who was standing next to the arena, and said that however was disappointed with someone else. He called Gong Jin and Tongt, who immediately jumped down and knelt in front of him. He said that they were too slow to react, so they needed to continue to work on themselves. They agreed with him, and he said that they should disperse and take care of the others. He looked at his sister, who was standing next to him, and asked why she looked so depressed. Kian said that she felt like they weren't good enough to gain their father's recognition. She looked at him and asked him what he thought about it. He said with a calm expression that this was how he was. However, the father suddenly became interested in the child he had always ignored. At the same time, he easily turned away from his son, who did not live up to his expectations. She apologized and said that she shouldn't have asked that. MC didn't care about it and asked if she was hungry by any chance. How about having a drink, since Ithi finished the duel? After a while, she drank from a small cup and said loudly with a happy expression that this was the real life. He looked at her with a small smile and said that she felt like she'd been starving for several days. They don't feed her in Chingchong. She said with a dissatisfied expression that they feed her quite a lot, but only vegetables. She's growing now, so she should eat meat and also drink whatever she wants. That's what she doesn't like about Taoists. He understands her, right? He agreed and said that she could have another glass. She handed him the cup, and he poured her some liquid from the bottle. He looked at her with a small grin and asked, "By the way, what kind of person is her senior training brother?" She became embarrassed because of this, and a skedwi. He suddenly asked about this. He asked with a sly grin. She mentioned him several times in the letters. How can Hennet be curious? He began to list what she wrote, which embarrassed her even more, and she loudly asked him to stop. Wui did not listen to her, and said that she did not mention that he was going to visit the head. Now he needs to know more about him, because they will have to meet, don't you think? Hujin said with a displeased look that he was infected with the bad energy of the Tun clan. He calmed down and thought that the fact that Lai Chan, a disciple of the King-changing sect, was coming was out of caution. On top of that, the reason for the Dark Overlord's visit was that Thederic Overlord was rumored to be trying to create another special force like the Storm. If this was true, all the sects and clans in Sichuan would try to do something about it. The same goes for the Qingchang sect, which the Tongklan has close ties with. They probably sent him here because they can't blindly trust her. Or maybe it's something more important than they think. He noticed someone, waved his hand, and said that they were here. Hujin turned around and asked, "Is this the friend he was going to invite?" She was very surprised when she noticed Gong Hu said that he should have been gentler in the training hall. They took a long time to clean up after him. He was surprised that she was a Blado, manifest a sword aura. She immediately bowed to him, called him uncle, and thanked him. She worried Lycled out to the protagonist quietly and asked why he didn't tell her he was coming. He also said with a wide smile that she didn't ask him about that. She worriedly put down a chair and said that he could sit here. He thanked her, sat in the chair, and said that they obviously ordered a lot of food. He hoped that all of this wouldn't be at his expense. They hid their glasses, and he said that he should try something like that. He calmly asked, "Did he hit his head somewhere?" She was very surprised by this, and cautiously asked quietly why he was acting so informally with him. Doesn't he know what kind of person he is? He was basically his father's martial brother. His uncle saved him from danger during the battle of Qing and even received an honorary title from the clan leader. He was surprised by what he heard and called him uncle in a worried voice. Gong looked at him and asked if something had happened to him. He bowed to him and said loudly that he didn't know about his relationship with his father and was very rude. He apologizes to him for that. Hujin quietly praised him with a small smile and said that she was sure he would understand if he apologized properly. He was very disappointed by that and turned to Herond, said loudly with a displeased look that they had ruined his entire appetite. Did she make him do that? Mick sat down in his seat and asked what he thought of the old storm troop, the righteous wind troop. He took his hand with a smile and asked what he thought he would give them. He held out an empty cup to him with a big smile and said it was A. He poured him some from the bottle with a disappointed expression and said he guessed right. It wasn't interesting at all. She offered him a drink, and he watched from the side and thought that through this fight he had the attention of the old storm squad. Now the next problem appeared. It was unknown what Siang was going to do before the Dark Lord arrived. At the same time, the spider was sitting on a carriage that was traveling in the mountains, and said that he did not think it would be so far. If they went too far, he might kill them, thinking that they had escaped. The carriage stopped, and he asked, "Have they arrived?" Sun got out of the carriage and said that they came without warning. "I wonder if the temple master will be there." The spider jumped off the carriage and said that the sorcerer who poisoned the young master probably lives here. He senses a strong dark energy. Who is he really? A hooded girl came out of the temple gate and told the Namong follower that she was grateful for coming. The temple master told her to meet her. Siang looked at her and asked how he knew she had arrived. His insight impressed her. The girl took off her hood and said that he was waiting inside. She should go there. The spider saw her and said with surprise that this was a jungi, a corpse that retained its memories and was able to think critically. He was using this creature, which was difficult for even the most capable alchemists to control, as just a servant. This did not look like a sorcerer's dwelling. He did not know if what they had said so far was enough. But too much was not enough. Had jumped over the fence and said that he needed to fulfill the young master's order for him to listen to his request. The master of this temple sat in the middle of the temple and said that he asked for more prophecies and to send him bright oracles. The Jungshi approached him, bowed, and told the Stormlord that Madame Namong had arrived. He, without turning to her, said that she should let her in. She came closer to him and greeted him politely. He said that, as he could see, she was here because things had not gone according to plan. She was full of greed. Their God showed mercy to those who regularly turned to him, not to those who only asked for things. Sayong waved her hand with a calm expression and asked that if it was the one who contributed more to the temple than anyone else, what would say to that? Her servant brought out 2 boxes filled with resources, and the master said with a wide smile that of course he would show mercy to that person. He started examining the pearls and said that this was his favorite. However, it still needed a little more. She said that if everything worked out, she would add another box. He said Thada expected of her. She knew how to gain their god's favor. So, how could he help her? She asked. He remembered their request she had made last time, right? He said with a smile that the concubine's child's brainwashing was still in effect. She shook her head in refusal and said that the situation had changed. He needed something faster and more reliable. She thought that she had thought that he was just a pawn that could be used and discarded. But the thoughtfulness of his actions, coupled with Kujin's attitude, would cause her a lot of trouble. She asked in a serious voice if he could turn him into a junkshe. He laughed and said that she seemed to be very angry. The spider looked at this from the side, thought that they were crazy freaks, jumped out of the building, and said that he must notify the young master. If that freak, the Stormlord, is capable of creating jungi, then the young master will have a hard time dealing with him right now. He noticed the many monsters that were blocking his path, and immediately realized that they were jungi beasts. He said with a worried look that the fact that he could create these monsters so easily meant that he was a sorcerer from the Blackbone Ghost Valley. The Mayon sect faction had turned into a Heaven Liedman cult. The master heard the sounds of the monsters and laughed and said that it seemed like she was being followed. Their ghosts were very unusual. The patron behind the concubine's son might be more problematic than they thought. Sinon sighed with a dissatisfied look and said that she would add another box. This news made him happy, and she said that since she had increased the fee, he should reveal the identity of the puppeteer and also turn the concubinist child into a Zhengxi. The master laughed and agreed to it, and asked, however, why should they look for his patron when himself had kindly come to them? Another Zhengxi ran up to him very quickly and asked his master, did heckle him? The master turned to him with a smile and said that he should capture the escaped ghost and find the sorcerer what was behind him. The monster immediately jumped onto the roof of the building and said that he never thought that the jangi beasts had not caught him yet. He looked into the distance with a serious expression and whistled loudly. The spider continued to run away and said that he felt an extremely unpleasant energy. The spider continued to run away from the crowd of monsters with a serious expression and tried to warn his master of the danger before heading. At the same time, in the white pavilion, the training room, when we asked, is she really not leaving? Quinn said with a smile that the weather is fine today. She will leave when she soars up a bit. He looked at her and thought that Yuch Chang, who had suffered a severe defeat, and Saiyang, whose plans had been put to an end, would try to harm him without a second thought from now on. She knew it too. He started to leave and said that just stay out of his way. She agreed and said that he could not worry about her and train. The ghosts next to him said that for someone from the Xingchang sect, she certainly had a conscientious character. How could someone with such a character be that child of Hosen and a girl from the Neimong family? He hit them and asked in his mind, would they shut up or did they want to turn into ghost pills? He began to examine the staff in his hand with a thoughtful look. This attracted the ghosts' attention, and one of them asked the young master, is there some kind of problem? He mentally said that something had changed in him after his training today. A ghost asked if he could find out how he felt. That said in his mind that before, when using martial arts, there was a delay between his thoughts and actions, something like a malfunctioning mechanism. He felt like it was because he was still a beginner in martial arts, even though there was a slight delay now, but he definitely felt that it had decreased. The ghost said that he was a senior mentor in the heavenly demon cult. Could he inspect his body? After receiving permission, he began to inspect his body from different angles. After that, he asked, had he ever heard of accumulated merit? He looked at Haim and asked in his mind, this is not internal energy, right? The ghost said that they are different things. Usually, increasing internal energy involves habitual training. But enlightenment, family influence, the increase of the practitioner, mainly depends on him. He will grow as he receives merit. The MC calmly asked in his mind, in other words, accumulated merit depends on reputation, right? The ghost agreed and said that this was why even when using techniques that absorbed the internal energy of others, he was not actually increasing his own internal energy, that mech, although he was a special case, and there was no clear research. It seemed to him that the merits accumulated over the years of his life of this body, and the new merits accumulated by him were very different, and perhaps the lag he was experiencing was a result of this. With a calm expression on his face, he mentally said that it seemed to him that the very fact of the lag was decreasing. He did not have time to finish because the ghost said that this meant that the accumulated merits of the young master and the new body were beginning to harmonize. When we thought that he meant that he had come to understand and accept the personality of the previous owner of this body, so his accumulated merits were beginning to harmonize with his merits. Since he could not consciously live as the previous owner of the body, even though he considered this body to be his own, subconsciously, he thought of his body as the body of another person. After the duel, his thoughts changed from he is using arts in someone else's body, to him being the one using martial arts. The feelings he experienced after meeting Quinn and Hosen, who did not take him seriously, slowly eroded his subconscious barrier. He mentally eskedho, much these merits were now connected. The ghost next to him said that it was about percent connected. If that similarity continues to grow, he will be able to easily achieve success in martial arts. The protagonist mentally said that this is great. This is all he needs. He began to practice with the staff and thought that in order to perfect the mystic art, harmony between the body and soul is necessary. He is confident that the higher the connection between the body and his soul grows, the faster he will achieve the same level of mystic arts as in his past life. Hoojin looked at him and thought that a lot had changed. She could not imagine that he would practice martial arts so confidently and enthusiastically. Although she felt sad and guilty for making him change, he started building his own castle. From now on, his walls would only grow higher. But Mom wouldn't wait for his castle to be finished. Spirit appeared next to her and said with a smile that something was approaching. Hearing this, she thought with a serious expression that everything was as she expected. The ghosts also sensed something strange and warned MC, and he said that it was a ghost fog. He said with a big smile that Bekos, of the Cinnabar poison-making style, he already knew that they were using ghost witchcraft. It looks like Thee finally got hooked. Now he'll see how big the fish is. Jangi stood on the roof nearby and said that the trail led him here. According to the Lord's guests, the patron behind the concubine's son uses a special kind of ghost witchcraft. Such a person is likely to use a unique magic tool. Since the trail ends here, it means the sorcerer is somewhere nearby. He can't wait to meet him. The fog has risen quite high. The ghost fog has the property of blocking consciousness, and if he restricts it to forming a thorny ghost fog, no matter what happens inside of this fog, no one from the outside will notice. Where is his prey now? He noticed a thread of energy that leads Taoanhui, and it caught his attention. He wondered why this thread leads to his second target, the concubine's son. It turns out that he covered his tracks. Apparently, the sorcerer did not use ghost sorcery himself. Instead, he used the concubine's child to activate the mystic arts technique. He noticed this monster and asked with a sly smile, what kind of fog was this that he could not see anything in? Jungi walked towards him and thought that his opponent was a puppeteer who was smarter than he thought. However, since the concubine's child was also his target, if he attacked him, the puppeteer would definitely show himself. In any case, he can't sense anything around him because the ghost fog. If he stands still, it will turn him into a Jungi, even if all his limbs are intact. He looked to the other side and saw Hoojin walking towards them while emitting a powerful aura. She ran up to that monster very quickly, dealt a very strong blow, and loudly said that he was caught. MC turned around with a smile and said that it was a big fish after all. He never thought that they would send a deadly swordsman and Gouda here. The ghosts next to him said that they were definitely from Blackbone Ghost Valley. However, this guy looks like a deadly swordsman of at least rank 3. Is everything going according to plan? He started searching for something in his inner pocket and said that a Taoist from the Chin Chang sect would hardly lose to a Jiang Shi of the same rank. But the problem is that this monster is an assassin sent by Xiang. Is his sister in control of the situation, or is she simply doing her duty as a Taoist to eliminate evil? He ate a pill while she was fighting and said that he could only trust her determination. Now, Jangi tried to break free from Kun's grip and wondered, is this Chin Chang's word energy? This is a Taoist arriving in the Nine Dragons district. This girl must be the daughter of the Tan family. But why is she here? He was able to break free from her grip, jumped away from her, and was about to say something to her. She ran up to him very quickly, swung her sword, and said loudly that she would not listen to pathetic demons. This vile Jungi must die again. His hands were shaking from her swift sword strikes, and thought that he could not handle her. Even if he achieved his goal, he could not fight with his full strength, lest he injure her. Otherwise, Lady Namon would break the contract. If that happened, the Lord would become furious and torture him. Chin very quickly began to attack him with her sword and asked loudly, what was he thinking about? She used the sword art of Ching Chang, cutting the blade incredibly fast. She struck many swift sword strikes and said loudly that Heshold stop thinking and just die. Blood was flowing from the wounds of this monster, and he thought that he could die here. He was thrown back and thought that since he was going to die anyway, he said loudly that he pied her because she was Lady Naimon's daughter, but it was her own fault for not listening to him. He took off the bandages that were wrapped around his hands, and a very strong energy engulfed him. His body grew very large, and blades came out of his hands thanks to the technique of ghost transformation. Keen looked at this huge monster who was standing in front of her with a surprised expression. He struck a very strong blow with the blade on his hand, but she was able to block this blow with her sword. Jungi looked at her and said loudly that if she retreated, she would not be hurt at all, and it would be easier for both of them, because his mission was Lady Naimon's request. She continued to hold back his blow, despite the fact that she did not have enough strength, and thought that she should not hesitate. She already knew that this was all her mother's plan. Her eyes lit up with energy, and she thought that she had to defeat him, find out who was behind him, and convince her mother to turn away from this path. She pushed his hand away, and he asked loudly, "Is this anti-demon energy? How prim and proper she is, and really very stubborn." He threw a very strong punch, but she managed to jump aside. He thought that if only she weren't so stubborn. If the battle continued, despite the thorny ghost fog, the Wind of Justice squad would discover them. He didn't know when the puppeteer would appear at all. He would be at a disadvantage if the battle continued. The ghost fog would weaken soon, so he had no choice but to use Garuda. His target was still the concubine's son. A monster was flying above them and let out a very loud cry. The ghost looked at this and said to the young master that he would not allow Garuda to release more ghost fog. Wui looked up with a smile and said that he finally used Garuda. He almost fell asleep from boredom. The ghost said that it would be better if the stubborn girl fought Gushio and the deadly sword. The flying monster flew towards him very quickly with its mouth wide open. He stood still calmly and said that it was so noisy at night. He looked at it with a serious expression on his face and said that he had to bow down before him. He used the first stage of Purple Eye's tormenting evil ghost. The monster was frightened by this and crashed into the ground after flying close to him. He looked at the monster that crashed into the ground and said that he didn't mean so low. The ghosts examined this monster and said that the surprising thing was that it didn't even bend its neck. Garuda seems to have a sturdy body to begin with. A huge amount of resources and time must have been spent on creating this guy. They just had to attack him. The protagonist looked at this with a confused look and said that this is not even his ability, but he is so excited. He must get up immediately. Gurio, who was stuck in the ground, suddenly came out from under the ground and looked at him with a frightened look. He sat calmly next to him and said that he will give him two options. Either he will fight with that Jungshi or with him, because he looked at them with a wide and scary smile. The monster immediately flew away from him. Gudia began to attack that monster, which confused him, and he loudly asked why he was attacking him. Did that guy really take control of him? He thought that Thepapatir's ability was enough to take control of Garuda. What's more dangerous is that it means the enemy is somewhere in a body. Cause Jun jumped behind him, swung her sword, laughed, and said that by turning the other way, he was tempting her to cut him. With this strike, she cut off the arm of this monster. I looked at her and wondered why she just cut off his left arm. He asked with a worried look, what did this mean? She could have killed him with this attack. She shouldn't tell him that she decided to retreat because of Lady Naimon. She said with a big smile that of course that wasn't the case. She planned to cut him into pieces to make him repent of his mistakes. Then she would slowly save his soul. He called her crazy in a worried voice and asked if this was how Taoists acted when they tried to help others. Garudio flew next to him and slashed his face with his claws. Janja turned around to look at this monster and loudly called it a mindless bird. Kujin thought that she didn't know why the Jungi beast that released the ghost fog was acting like this around her brother, but she needed to get rid of the remnants of the ghost fog. She used the hermit-style, evil destruction crushing strike and began to make mana-quick sword strikes. The Jungi stood still and thought that the ghost's transformation technique was dissipating. He needed to find an opportunity to escape from here while there were still remnants of the ghost fog. He gathered energy in his palm, slammed the ground, and pushed it back a few meters. Immediately after, He jumped and tried to grab his severed arm. Guda flew towards him, as did Hu, loudly asked, "Where is he going?" He used the explosion skill, causing his arm to emit powerful energy. That arm exploded, causing her to be unable to catch up with him and block it. Immediately after that, she ran towards him very quickly to strike him again with her sword. Tajunji managed to take out the pill he used and disappeared at the moment of her attack. She turned around and said that everything was going according to his plan. He should be careful. Someone was using demonic arts. MC sat next to her and asked if she could help him. He started telling her his plan and she asked if he meant that they should not kill the Jangi, who intended to attack them. He agreed and said that they needed to gather enchantment first. Although the escapee belonged to a side branch of the clan, he was still able to infiltrate the main manor and spread the ghost mist. The enemy must be strong enough to use enchantment. If he feels threatened, he will simply use their turn talisman to escape. Right now, he is not strong enough to defeat such a Jangi in the place he cast enchantment. However, if she could dispel this, then he would reveal the identity of the person behind this monster that dared to attack the Nine Dragon County. Chin said that if he was telling the truth, then the Jangi they were dealing with wasn't by her mother. What would he do if she decided to submit to her mother's will? Wooey stood up and said with a small smile that in that case, he would just end up being a loser in this game of scheming. Isn't this what it means to be part of the Tan clan? She was a little surprised by this, and thought that to him who had been through so much hardship, the Tanlin was just a bunch of lying and deceitful people. However, she was sure that he would understand that not everyone was like this. It would take a little more effort. Gudla landed next to them. She looked at it and said that he was that beast after all. She looked at it with a cruel smile and asked, "Does he want more?" This scared the monster very much, while the Jungi they injured ran to safety with incredible speed. He said with a worried look that he couldn't believe that he was running away after a failed mission, even if he reattached his arm. After losing Garuda and increasing the security in the Nine Dragon District, the master would never forgive him. Olaf, this happened because of that damn woman. The protagonist caught up with him and said that if he was going to rest here, he should have gone further away. Did he seriously just leave the mansion? The monster jumped back with a frightened look and wondered, have they already tracked him down? He looked at him and wondered, is this the concubine's son? What is he doing here? And how was he able to track him down? Could it be that the puppeteer is pulling the strings? They should have tracked down the source of the thorny ghost fog spell. Since they were able to take control of Garuda, it doesn't matter. He has to use this chance. If He catches him, he can reveal the identity of the puppeteer and bring back Gurio. He noticed the ghostly energy emanating from him and thought that it seemed like the patron had assigned some wandering ghost to him. However, this form he looked at the monster in front of him with a grin and said that he knew that son was completely desperate. But he never thought that someone from the Namon clan was an ally of the Blackbone Ghost Valley. Zheng Shi was very surprised by this and loudly asked how he knew about this. He looked at him with a smile, began to emit energy, and asked, "Who knows?" This energy finally engulfed his body, and the monster said loudly, in a very suppressed voice, that this is the battle robe of an evil ghost. MC said that it turns out that he knows what it is, which means He's old enough. Zhongxi thought about the evil ghost's battle attire. Years ago, everyone in Blackbone Ghost Valley knew about it. This was a witchcraft weapon that the young heavenly demon used whenever he created chaos. So this ghost energy, is it an evil ghost? He asked loudly. Why does he, of all people, have such a thing? He looked at him with a serious expression and asked, does he really think he will answer? He has a lot of questions for him. Jinxie looked at him and asked loudly, does he really think he will answer these questions? Wooey raised his hand and said that of course not right now. They need to talk after he is dead. The monster was worried about this and thought that If really was the heir to the cult, he would kill him with one blow. He saw the very powerful energy that he began Tomet and thought that he was advancing. Is he using mystic arts or the Ghost King? The protagonist ran up to him very quickly and swung his fist to punch him. He punched the monster really hard and he wondered, was that martial arts? With this attack, the Jungi was sent flying back a few meters and hit his back on a tree. He fell to the ground and thought that this was the secret art of the Nine Dragon clan, the Storm Dance. The enemy uses martial arts instead of mystical arts. A wide smile appeared on his face. He laughed loudly and said that he is not the cult heir. The cult heir cannot use martial arts, and he is a monster that can destroy a dead swordsman like him with one finger. He doesn't know where he saw the ability of the cult heir. Learning to imitate it, he attacked the monster with his dark energy, but it managed to dodge and screamed loudly in surprise. He looked at this attack in surprise and asked loudly, "Is that a single binding chain?" He thought that this was a weapon created by the clan heir. He looked at it with a shocked look and wondered, is this really the cult heir? However, how does he use martial arts then? More precisely, how is he still alive? MC looked at him from the side and asked. This puzzled him, didn't it? Is he the person he knows, or not? Don't have time to think about such things. Zhengxi thought with a worried look. He was right. If he continued to drag it out, the Wind of Justice squad, or the girl who screamed loudly would come to his aid. As long as he knew their identities, he couldn't escape. There was a way to silence him. However, if he really was the heir to the cult, Hilton finished his thought, because he asked, he still hadn't moved. Was someone being promoted to the rank of dead swordsman at this time? He means looking at how he carried Garuda around with him everywhere, one can conclude that he wouldn't be able to handle even one person. Maybe he should just go back. He needed some information. But a guy like him definitely wouldn't be trusted with it. This made Jungi very angry, and said loudly that he would make him regret those words, even if it cost him his life. He ran towards him very quickly, and swung his hand to attack him. He was about to grab his hand, and when we asked, he finally decided to move, right? He thought that he see Matobi trying to buy time, by leading them away from the estate. However, this would only hinder him if that idiot got scared, and decided to run away. He needed to try everything he couldn't use in the fight with Quinn. He slammed his back into the wall, really hard, and said that he got too carried away, and now he needed to deal with the corpse. At least his talk reminded him of the cult heir. Unexpectedly, for him the protagonist grabbed his hand, and said that Heffenly felt relieved now. He pulled his hand away from him, and said that if he didn't want to rest, he should have at least moved further away, after using the return talisman. How was he going to deal with his corpse with such attacks? Zhang became worried about this, and wondered, was this really the culter's evil ghost battle robe? He pulled Hishand back, and said loudly that this was simply impossible. He tried to attack him from different directions, but couldn't injure him, and thought that he had strengthened his attacks by loading up on demonic essence. But still, it had an effect on him. He looked at him with a calm expression, and said that, even turning him into a corpse with suck attacks would take him a year. The monster became very angry about this, and insulted him loudly, and swung his arm to hit him again. He threw a strong punch, but MC stopped him with his hand, and said that the battle robe's durabilititis was complete. It was time to test it out. He delivered a very strong punch to his body, and sent him flying very far. The Jungi survived this attack, and thought that this blow confirmed his thought, he was weaker than him. These blows would not cause him fatal wounds. He would be able to defeat him when the evil ghost battle robe disappeared. Anthe mystic energy was exhausted. He ran up to him very quickly, and asked, what kind of laughter was that? Was hellowing because his attacks were weaker than he expected? Did he hope to defeat him when the battle robe dissipated? You should listen to him. He came here knowing that he was a junkie from White Bone Ghost Valley. Did he really think that he was not prepared for this? Does the brain also decompose when turning into a Zhengxi? The monster looked at him with a serious expression, and said loudly that he was only so pompous because he was wearing the evil ghost battle robe. He should show him what he was capable of in a fight against him. He started to try to hit him with his fist, and said loudly, before he runs out of mystical energy to maintain his attire. He tried to hit him, but had disappeared, and the monster immediately realized that it was an illusion art. We appeared behind him, and kicked him hard in the head. The monster tried to attack him, and said loudly that he was as agile as a rat. He looked at him and thought that this attack didn't cause a deep wound either. It seemed that he couldn't break through the dead swordsman's defense now. He would, have a lot of work to do. However, unfortunately, it was time to end. He started to emit strong energy, and Jang Jaeist loudly. He still hasn't figured it out. His attacks were useless against him. He gave a strong punch and ran behind him. He turned around to face him abruptly and said loudly that it tickled. Unlike his battle attire, his booty wouldn't wear out. He had to keep attacking him, and it wouldn't be long before he got his comeuppance. The protagonist stood calmly with his back to him and said that he was worried that if he dodged all the attacks, it would rag on. However, he tried his best to get it all to hit him. He still thought that the brain does not decompose during transformation. Jung Shi looked at him with a smile and said that he must have gone crazy being cornered. He would see how long he could move his mouth. At that moment, blood suddenly came out of his mouth. He was surprised by this and asked, "Are these symptoms of poisoning?" However, how could he poison him? He looked at him and said that normal poison wouldn't have worked. He looked at the energy from the poison emanating from his body with a shocked look and asked loudly, "Is this really the poison of lost souls?" MC looked at him and said that since he took all the hits with his naked body, he made sure to hit every part of him. He should enjoy it. Jiangxi swung his fist and asked loudly, "The lost souls dared to try to eat his body. They should stop touching him." He released a powerful wave of energy, and the ghosts around him disappeared. However, this caused him to run out of strength, and he fell to the ground. Hugh walked up to him, and the monster said that he just had to answer his last question. He was the heir to the cult, right? He sat down next to him and said that he would not die here. He took out a chain made of his energy, and Jung Ae asked, with a worried look, what was he planning? His battle form, made of energy, began to disappear, and he told elders that he had to go. They should train the newbie properly, so that he would listen to him. Immediately after that, the ghosts of the elders appeared around the monster and agreed to it. Wu Yi walked away from them, into the forest, and said that it wasn't that easy. Maybe it's because he's not yet able to do it on a subconscious level. But he's having trouble with witchcraft and mystic fields that take a long time to prepare. He needs to practice martial arts more and improve his mystic arts skills. He needs to work even harder. His face became serious, and he thought that someone was watching him. Did they see everything? Who was it, and where were they hiding? Was it Hosen? He asked calmly. Even though he was the scariest member of the clan, he really didn't move. Even though he saw everything, he became worried and said that maybe, because of the great distance, he didn't see what exactly he was doing, but he must have realized who was fighting. How arrogant is he? Kyun came out to meet him, dragging Guriel along with her, and he asked, "Did she come all this way?" She asked, "He's not hurt, right? And what happened?" He looked at her with a confused look and said that he was okay. He was about to say something else, but she understood him and said that she thought he could do something about it. She wanted to cut off his wings so that he couldn't escape, but that turned out harder than she thought. So instead, she just beat him up. He thought with a slightly worried look that from now on, he wouldn't contradict her. The protagonist bowed to her and said that he had let it slip. She gave him an opportunity, but he failed, and apologized for that. She looked confused and said that he didn't have to worry Beckus. The main thing was that he was okay. She could just beat up that Jiang Shi until they figured out where they were hiding. Gouda broke free from her grip and quickly ran behind him. She was surprised by this and asked, "Can Hestel move?" The monster looked at him with a pitiful expression and let out a frightened cry. He sat down next to Hyman, said that it would be difficult to bring a jungi of this size into the house. Gura used his energy and shrank a lot in size. He was a little surprised by this and asked, "Can he use mystic arts?" Something strange caught his attention, and he said that he would keep it in the White Pavilion. She must be tired. They need to rest for a while. Kyun was thinking about everything that was happening, but she still smiled and said that he was right. The intruder was finished, so it was time for her to go. She turned away from him and began to leave with a serious expression. After a while, the MC in his room asked, "So his master is the cursed white bone mentor?" The ghost jungi kneeled in front of him, agreed, and said that it was him. He said in a calm voice that it had been a long time since he had seen this old man. He raised his head and said that he must be familiar with the white bone mentor. He agreed with this, and thought that this old man had taught him the art of death, and he had mastered it in just a month. Anyway, besides him, there's the blue bone merchant, the red bone horror, and the green bone indestructible. The four from the black bone ghost valley are near the Nine Dragon County, and are plotting something. The four elders from the black bone ghost valley are near the Nine Dragon County. There is only one reason they would show interest at such a time. The grand welcome of the Dark Overlord, Moonhawk. The Dark Overlord, Endone, of the greatest martial artists, led the new special squad. In the opinion of the divine cult, they can't just watch as Sichuan's defense is strengthened. Usually, they would plant traitors in the squad or try to thin their numbers. But they wouldn't need the elders from Blackbone Ghost Valley if they just wanted to weaken the squad, especially considering that Sanan, the mistress of the Nine Dragon clan, also belongs to the Namong clan and is related to it. They are plotting something much bigger. A group of barrier breakers that controls the heavenly demon cult, a community. If they have the cult's secret support, plans that would have seemed crazy before may suddenly become feasible. This was a laughable act in the past, he asked with a serious expression. Are they trying to assassinate the Dark Overlord? The ghosts asked the foolish Zhengxi loudly, with dissatisfied expressions. Does he really think that if for elders from Blackbone Ghost Valley can defeat the Dark Overlord, even the 9 demon ancestors couldn't? The Dark Overlord, one of the greatest martial artists, when we asked with a dissatisfied look, so, these guys are scouts, right? The ghost monster said that he didn't know the details, but he heard that the support was coming from Tian Shan. He was surprised by this, and wondered, aren't they from the community? He called him Nember, and the Zhengxi immediately responded to it. He asked if he knew anything about the community. He weirdly said that he was too stupid to understand what kind of community he was talking about. He said with a thoughtful expressions that it was good that he didn't know about it. He thought that the dead swordsman from the Blackbone Ghost Valley didn't seem to know about it. In order to get more information about the community, he needed to capture that old freak, the damned Whitebone mentor. The problem was that with his current strength, he couldn't even break through his magic barrier, let alone defeat him. He stood up and said that, other than that, this was all he could get out of Number. Suddenly, Gong burst into his room and loudly asked the young master if he was okay. The clan leader ordered him to bring him to him, but what happened in their courtyard? He didn't understand what he meant, and the ghost said that he Simeto be talking about the traces left after his fight with his sister. The protagonist said that he should come. He would explain everything on the way. He thought that with the help of the Wind of Justice, Squad and him, everything would be much easier. However, there is a bigger problem. He must start from how much this Personk knows, and what his next move will be. He came to the clan leader of the 9 dragons, gave his name, and said that he was greeting the clan leader from the White Pavilion. Busan looked at him and asked if he understood why he kept his distance in public places like the training grounds, but he spoke formally, even in private. He apologized and said that it had been a long time since they had spoken in private. Gong was very surprised by this and quietly asked, "Ish, crazy?" They barely gained his favor, but he decided to ruin it all himself. Mick turned to him with a smirk and quietly asked. So his mentor was praising him. He became angry at this and quietly asked, how can he joke about such a thing? He calmly said that he should continue to just observe. He turned around and said that if he was going to reward him for defeating the enemy infiltrating the 9 Dragon Pavilion, shouldn't it be treated as a public matter? Thought that he didn't call him over to talk like a father and son. They were both testing how Mukok of them knew about the situation. Hosen said that he seemed to understand why he called him. He said with a serious expression that he looked like he had figured out the identity of the attacker and how exactly his wife was related to him. He listened to him, and it was primarily due to the arrival of the clan patriarch. We looked at him with a serious expression and thought that as expected he knew about the assassination plan. He said with a serious expression that judging by his reaction he must have already realized it. He had heard that he had changed, but this was too much. His inner energy, his resourcefulness, his vision of the situation. This was not a level that could be achieved in a few years. He had been waiting for his opportunity in this deep pit. He never thought that he had been deceived by him for so long. His vileness was truly befitting of the Tan clan. He bowed to him and said that he was grateful for his praise. He thought that it sounded like an insult, but in fact, it was the best compliment one could receive in the Tan clan. Hosen looked at him with a very serious expression and said that then he should not cross the line. He raised his head and was about to ask something about it, but he interrupted him and said that he would not interfere in their disputes with Seong, but he should not touch those behind her. The protagonist, he lets his son fight his wife to the last, but wants to leave the divine cult. What is this snake planning? He agreed to it and thought that it would be difficult to strike the white bone at once. Hosen passed by, said that he told him everything he wanted so he can go back to his place. He turned to him and said that before leaving, he should reward him for defeating the intruder. He turned to him abruptly when he heard this, and Asketos he want a reward. Since he was trying so hard to get it, it must be something he couldn't get on his own. Heckle tell him what he wanted. MC said with a calm expression that he wanted to train in the monster forest. He thought that in the special environment of that forest, teeming with poisonous insects and mystical beasts, he would have a way to quickly restore his mystical power to the level of his past life. Hosen said with a calm expression that only Theklan Patriarch could give him permission. He could only ask him for it when they met, but he wouldn't promise anything. He stood quietly by his side and said that he understood that. He was a little dissatisfied with this unthought that it seemed like it was out of the question for now. Took out a small butterfly from his inside pocket and asked him in return would he like Totri taking it. Gong was very surprised when he saw the insect he had just taken out and was about to say something. Buth turned to him and said that he should calm down. We looked a little worried and wondered what was going on. Was this some kind of rare artifact that even he was confused about? To him, it looked like just a decoration. Hosen looked at it and asked if he didn't like it. He said in a confused voice that he didn't. He tried to approach it and thought that energy around it was preventing him from getting closer. Did this mean that he wanted him to take it in another way? He looked back and quietly told Ghost Number that he should go. He agreed to it and immediately flew towards the butterfly. It sensed it and started to fly away, which surprised Gong even more. The insect flew in and landed in the protagonist's hands. Hosen looked at it calmly, walked away, and said that it belonged to him now. He looked at Gong, called his name, and said that it was time for them to go. He looked at them with a shocked expression and agreed with him. They left together, and he looked at the butterfly in his hand and asked, "What was this?" The ghosts. Nixdoham said that it looked like an expensive item. However, knowing these people, it might be a hidden weapon. He grabbed them with a very dissatisfied expression and asked, "Who asked them anyway? They should leave here." They all started to fly away and worriedly agreed with him. At the same time, Gong was walking down the street and Asketis Master. Is he sure about this? This artifact was very valuable to him. Hosen looked up and said that it used Tobe like that. But it had been years since the Stormtroop disbanded and the Nine Dragon Clan was founded. Most importantly, his son said that he wanted to inherit the legacy of the Stormtroop. He said with a confused look that this was why he passed the blood butterfly to the young master. Thought that maybe he still regretted not achieving the goals he set for himself with the Stormtroop. Asen calmly said that he had shown this artifact to his other two children as well, but they showed no interest in it. However, he somehow got hold of the blood butterfly. If he could, then maybe he is able to unravel the secrets of the blood butterfly. After a while, MC sat in his room and asked, "Did he really say that?" He didn't say, "What is it?" The ghost said that he didn't say anything, but from their speech, it seems like it is something valuable. This so-called artifact absorbs a huge amount of spiritual energy every time it moves. From the look of it, it might be a demonic tool. He looked at it with a slightly interested look and asked, "Is this a demonic tool?" He swatted Theghost away with his hand and said that he should move away so he could take a look. He began to channel his energy into the artifact and said that after all, it is an item from the Tun clan, so spiritual energy can't be its main fetcher. It can't absorb that much spiritual energy. The butterfly flapped its wings and all the energy Heckeneld instantly disappeared. He got angry about this, and started channeling even more energy, and said that it should have stopped resisting and making him look bad. This didn't change anything, and he asked loudly, what if he tried this? After a while, he lay down on the bed and said that he was so upset about the blood butterfly that he couldn't sleep properly. He would deal with it later. He thought that, although if the damned master of white bones found out Abu's failed attack, he would definitely make a move. Hosen's warning forbade him from acting recklessly. However, isn't there a way to disrupt the enemy's plans without fear of Hosen's interference? He doesn't think an opportunity will appear right away. Maybe he'll have to wait. Gouda jumped onto his desk and started making strange sounds. When we looked at him and thought that he had just interrupted his reasoning, he may be strong, but not strong enough to fight several dead swordsmen. If he's going to use it, he'll have to make it even stronger. He clenched his hand, released the blood, which he began to control with his energy, and thought that by using his blood as a medium, using the eye of the dead man, he would turn it into a refined artifact containing knowledge of the Ghost King. He would call it the blood of the Ghost King. The ghosts said loudly that this was the famous blood of the Ghost King. He never thought that he would ever envy someone's inheritance. They must maintain dignity. Even for ghosts, such behavior is unworthy of them. Since this contains the knowledge of the Ghost King, this blood is an unrivaled design for those who use demonic arts. The protagonist held out his blood and asked, he wants this, right? Garuda began to jump and make joyful sounds, he asked. However, why should he give it to him? What did he do to deserve it? Perhaps if he tells him the location of the Gianni beast farm in the Blackbone Valley, he will give it to him. What does he think of this? He immediately began to nod his head in agreement. He saw this and gave him his blood and said that it was very good. As soon as he swallowed the blood and his body was filled with very strong energy, his appearance began to change, and the ghost said loudly in surprise that this was incredible. He was reborn. This musteb, a mythical bird that announces the advent of the demonic army. MC looked at him and asked, with a small smile, how does it feel to be reborn? It looks like he will be more useful than a spider now. The soul of one of the elder sappered in Gudyo's body, which surprised him very much. The ghosts looked at him in surprise at Wuthapend and asked, isn't he Elder Wong? Wasn't his soul destroyed? He turned around and asked the heir of Thekelt, in surprise, why did he bring him back? He raised his hand and said that there were 3 reasons. First, it is Airward for his loyalty. Most of his subordinates cursed his name when they were on the verge of death, but he distinguished himself. This also Tessiento, the second reason. He still clings to the hope that he will protect his daughter. He doesn't even know her name here. Facey said with a smile that he has to find her himself with his own strength. Finally, the third reason is simple. Ghosts are easier to control than idiots. The elder looked at him and thought that he could leave the third reason unspoken. He said that it seems like he will finally get rid of his chains. But now he realizes that he wouldn't be able to escape from it. He remembered the past and thought that after he lost his wife, his daughter wastes only reason for living. She is his treasure. So since Chen Hoshin kidnapped his daughter, he was already dead. He betrayed the cult leader and the cult heir for her, but was still unable to protect her. Who would have thought Thath would get another chance? Wong said, with a serious expression that he swears allegiance to him. He will devote his soul to his cause, and his fate is now in his hands. He will follow his orders without hesitation. When we looked at him and asked, he retained his memories, right? Does he remember where the farm is? He started emitting energy with a serious look, and said that if he gave the order, he would fly there right now, and tear them apart with his new claws and beak. He extended his hand with a serious look, and said that he must destroy the farm, and show the traitorish superiority of the divine cult. He agreed to this, and immediately flew out the window. After a while, Sayong said that she was so tired after the night trip. She noticed a note on the table, and wondered, is this a report from Muzhang? Considering the corner is folded, it means it is some kind of urgent matter. She started reading it, and wondered in surprise. Yuch changed in a draw, while the clan leader was watching them. At that moment, she came to her, called her mother, and asked where she was. Suyong turned to her with a worried look, called her by name, and asked what brought her here so early in the morning. She had some urgent matters. She said that it meant something so urgent that she couldn't tell her. A jangi sent specifically for Wanhui had entered the manor at night. She pretended to be surprised by the news, and thought that it meant that the one she saw yesterday had dealt with that freak. She didn't like that the Zhengshi's intrusion had been noticed, but for now everything was fine. Hyujin said that she had fought him. This surprised her very much, and she asked what she had just said. Why did she doth it? She hadn't been hurt, had she? She said, with a calm expression, that she was fine. That monster mentioned her, and hesitated, not daring to attack her. Sayang, with a very displeased expression, wondered what those idiots had done. She called her name and said that everything she was doing was for Yu Chang in her own good. That illegitimate child was just a nuisance. She asked with a serious expression, did she hate him that much? So much that she was willing to use the Zhenghi to help her when her daughter, part of that Qingchangzheng sect. She was very worried about this, and wanted to say something loudly. She didn't listen to her and started to walk away, and said that if she didn't intend to turn away from the path she had chosen, she would have to stop her, even if she had to use force. Sayang, looking scared, stretched out her hand towards her and called her name loudly. She said with a displeased expression that she didn't understand how he felt. How could she not understand? She fell to her knees, unthought that this was all because of that freak. She should have taken care of this earlier, before things got this bad. She needed to go to the temple immediately. She had to do this for her daughter. At the same time, Gong was walking down the street and said that he had plenty of courage. Did he really need to walk around here after what happened last night? The protagonist stated that he could come back if he was going to complain. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that Ho needed to follow orders. They came to a building, and he said that this was Luong's forge. He looked at it, unthought that the god of crafts and Tawa's techniques using the name of a legendary figure was quite presumptuous. They went inside and Gong asked, "Is the owner inside?" The worker looked at him, called him by his title, and agreed with it. The man came out of the room and asked, "Is that loser here?" He said that he should let him introduce them. "This is the owner of the forge, Tanchu Kyang." The MC bowed to him and said that it was a pleasure to meet him. He was about to give his name, but he interrupted him and asked, "Is he the second son of that cold freak?" He agreed with it and gave his name. He thought that he had heard that. He knew their family from the time of the Storm Squad, but he didn't realize that they were close enough to call Hosen so disrespectfully. He turned around and asked why they came, just to meet each other. Gong smiled and said that he had something to do. He sighed in displeasure and said that there was already a lot of work to do here. He guessed that he came here because he was not happy with what he was given in the Nin Dragon clan. He would do whatever he wanted. He just needed to leave the drawing here and leave. We thought Thoth already had a long list of things to do. It made sense. After all, everyone wanted to make sure their weapons were in good condition before the Dark Lord showed up. He wouldn't have walked through the door if Gong hadn't been with him. He took out the drawing and said that this drawing was quite complicated, so it seemed like he would need an explanation. Chucking asked with a serious expression, "Did he even know how he was talking to? Would do everything perfectly. Even if the drawing for the hidden weapon was really bad, he didn't have to worry." He said with a small smile that he didn't want the hidden weapon. "But the sword," he asked, "is he going to become a Ching Chang toist like his sister?" Gong immediately grabbed it and asked loudly, "Did he come here with it for the sword and not the hidden weapon? Why, and what for? Does he need it at all?" The protagonist said that he asked him to find a blacksmith, but did not say anything about the hidden weapon. He agreed with this, turned around unthought, with a sad face that he was embarrassed now. Chukyung said that he probably had high hopes for him. He went to another room and said that he should show his drawing. He followed him, opened his drawing, and said that he wanted to use this dark sword to modify this. The blacksmith looked at it and asked, "Does he want to do this?" Gong came over to take a look and asked, "Isn't this a metal fan?" The blacksmith with a serious expression said that he was wrong. It was definitely a sword. This caught MC's attention and he thought that it was really good, immediately understood the intention of the drawing. He chuckled and said that it was an interesting, or rather even ingenious weapon. He said with a smile that he was grateful to him for such words. Chukyung looked at him and said that he did not need his psychophancy. It would be better if he told them about this strange sword. They started discussing all this, and the ghost looked at them and asked, "The young master also understands this, right?" He does not understand what they are talking about. He said that it is a sword, but this one is clearly shaped like a fan. He heard the word gunpowder, but why is there gunpowder in a sword? Is this some kind of secret of the Tankland? He does not think so. It seems that this guy does not understand what is going on either. Chukyung continued to look at the drawing and asked, "He is a little greedy, right?" MC said with a smile that it would be more correct to say that he is quite ambitious. He said with a serious expression that he will have to do it himself. Gong was very surprised by what he heard and asked if he wanted to do it himself. He agreed and said that this design for the sword was not for his disciples. Wonwei's eyes lit up and he thought that this was his chance. He knelt down and said loudly that he wanted to show the sword he had made when the clan patriarch visited. It would be a great honor for him. He was a little surprised by this and said that there were only days left until his visit. He looked up at him and asked if it was impossible. Chukyung asked if he did understand that he had his own schedule, right? He responded by saying that he understood, so it would be too difficult for him. It seemed that his request was too difficult for him. He apologized to him for this. This made him very angry, and he said loudly that it could be done in days. This caused a wide smile to appear on his face, and he said that he knew he was amazing. Gong looked at him with a regretful expression and thought that another victim had been caught. After that, the protagonist went outside and thought that he was glad that he had the best blacksmith. It exceeded his expectations. He was sure that the Jongi farm had already been dealt with, so there was only one thing left. His attention was caught by Quinn, who called his name. He looked at her and asked what happened. She seriously said that she wanted to ask him something. He looked at her and thought that Azula's murderous energy, the spectral traces that were leaking out meant that she was unable to control her emotions so much that it was impossible to hide with the solo world style. It seemed that this was the reason. She asked, "This might be unexpected, but what does he think about the past?" She means, if he holds grudges or something like that. She wants to know what he thinks. He began to manipulate the air around his hand and asked if she could catch the wind. It can be caught for a second, but she can't hold it in her hand. If she could stop it, he wouldn't be the wind anymore. What does the past matter? There are so many things humans to do and needs to do now. The future is more important to him. She was very surprised by this and said with a happy smile that she made a decision thanks to him. She has to do a few things, so he doesn't have to wait for her for a while. Right after that, she passed by him and jumped forward very quickly. The ghosts around him said that such a kind girl turned out to be angry. Her killer energy came from the style of the single world. With a swipe of his finger, MC threw them aside and said that they should stop talking. Better keep an eye on her. They agreed, flew away, and he thought that if she was so excited, she must have had a fight with her mother. It doesn't seem like this woman would just sit back after a fight with her daughter. He walked in and said with a smile that he better get ready to meet the guest. After a while, the Zarvant called the clan leader and said that the second son asked for a meeting with him. Gall, who was in the study, turned around at the voice and asked, "Does the young master want to meet?" Hosen looked at the document in his hand with a calm expression and said that they could let him in so he could wait there. He went out to meet him and quietly asked the young master what he was doing here. Wui quietly said that he wanted to pay tribute to his father as his son. He quietly said that if he was going to talk such nonsense, he had better leave here quickly. He asked with a sly grin, "He is still the young master of the 9 Dragon Clan. Isn't this kind of treatment too cruel?" Gong asked how about doing something to make him treat him better first. They entered the office and Hosen asked, "So why did Heck come?" He said with a calm expression that he came to discuss the matter they discussed the night before. He wants to make a deal. He looked at him with a serious expression and called out to Gong, who was standing next to him. He immediately understood everything, and the protagonist noticed that he instantly disappeared. When the two of them were left alone, he said that by interfering in this matter again, he risked hindering the progress of the Tonklin's plans. He hoped that he had a good reason for doing so. He thought that he had understood this back in the training field, but this was not the energy that a branch clan leader should have. He agreed to it and thought that he said the Tan clan's plans, so they were planning something. Hosen said that if he wanted to make a deal, they both had to benefit. What could he offer him? He said that he didn't have anything he could give him right now, but he could promise to hand over something. He would protect Quinnen's elder sister. He knew very well who the lady had gotten involved with. His father thought about it, and quietly said that he could continue. MC thought, did he use some telepathy? So, there were still people left here after all. He used the same technique, and said that if the connection between the lady and the demonic cult was exposed, Qin and even Yu Cheng wouldn't be able to escape the consequences. He was well aware of how the children of the demonic cult's spy would be treated in Yanu. His sister and brother would never be able to set foot in Janhu again. Hosen said that he was the person who led the Furious Wind Squad as the vanguard to stop the demonic leader. Who would dare to put such a label on his children? Wooney said that, of course they wouldn't say that in front of him, but the world isn't that simple. So he would try to make sure that John wouldn't be branded that way. His father said normally that they would put aside how exactly he was going to fulfill such a promise. What did he want in exchange? He said that since his part in this matter would by no means be small, he wanted to take an active part in their plans. Hosen asked if he thought he was capable enough to be included in his plans. He said with a serious expression and a smirk that he would prove to him that he was capable. He would bring him the head of the demon leader. At the same time, Seong entered the temple and loudly asked how he could fail like that. Does he even realize how much she's done for him? Does he know what her daughter told her? That heck handle one freak. The master loudly called out to her to stop talking loudly. When she fell silent, he calmly said that he knew his judgment was wrong, since things turned out like this. He had also lost a disciple, so he would not stand by. She need not worry, he would come out himself. Jungshi came in and called him loudly. He looked at Herond, asked why she was making such a fuss. She said with a serious expression that it was an emergency. He took a deep breath, called the mistress, and said that she should sit down and wait for a while. Sun agreed to this, sat down. Thought that she did not like being humiliated, but the skills of the temple master were worth it. Since the temple master said that he would come out himself, it meant that he would definitely be destroyed. Hearing the news from Jamshi, he loudly asked what said. He thought with a very dissatisfied expression. Was the Zhongyi beast farm attacked? The farm of Hispits, who had been secretly working in Sichuan province for decades. So, it turns out, that Ru, with similar energy to Gouda, his creation, destroyed them all. She continued to sit next to him and asked what was going on. Unexpectedly for her, he quickly walked up to her and grabbed her by the throat. He slammed her to the ground really hard and asked loudly. Did she decide to deceive him? There is a high-class sorcerer with enough authority to take the parasitic crow he created and evolve it. Does she seriously think he will believe that he is on the side of some kid from the Tan branch clan? This is just absurd. She conspired with this sorcerer to stab them in the back, didn't she? Scene looked at him with a frightened expression and said that she didn't know what he was talking about. He began to emit powerful energy and asked loudly, did she not understand, or was she just pretending? Was she underestimating them? The Blackbone Ghost Valley? Shet looked at him with a very scared look and thought, did he say Blackbone Ghost Valley? Isn't that a demonic cult? Does mean that this place is part of a demonic cult? Master looked at her and thought that she definitely didn't know anything, judging by her reaction. It seems like the Namong family used her until she became useless. He let her go and said that there must have been a misunderstanding. He sees that she really isn't involved in this. She thought with a very scared look, did she get involved with a demonic cult? It means that her family dragged her into this. That means the Naman clan is collaborating with a demonic cult. He called her and asked, the second son in her house is called Wonwi, right? Now that he thinks about it, even his name is similar to that freak. She doesn't even have to ask. Now he has a reason to kill him, along with the sorcerers who are behind him. Can he ask for her help? After a while, Seong said with a serious expression that she was wrong. If she needed to apologize for something, then she apologized. The protagonist said with a smile that this was quite unexpected. She really wanted to apologize. She hid her dissatisfaction and thought that she didn't want to, but that was the deal. She remembered that Master had said earlier that they needed to gain the second son's favor. He had to like her. She felt embarrassed by this and asked why he needed this. He looked at her with a wide smile and said that if she didn't want to do this, then Hera would make her a junkshe to make sure the task was completed. She was very scared because of this and said loudly that she would do anything at this time. She thought that she needed to use manipulation to find a clue. It wouldn't be easy, but she had to do it. He said that she had always acted as if she didn't care about anyone. He used sound telepathy with a wide and sly smile and said that she seemed afraid that the clan leader would find out Thatch had gotten involved with a demonic cult. San was very surprised by what she heard and wondered, how did this kid know? He wasn't just saying that. He was completely sure of it. She just found out yesterday that this temple belonged to a demonic cult. Then how did he know about it? He looked at her with a very angry expression and said with a wide smile that she looked very confused. She thought that she felt like a thuppeteer he had been with for the past few months was controlling him. But those eyes didn't belong to someone or someone's control. She didn't know if his patron was helping him, but he figured it out on his own. However, I've still only had a superficial understanding of everything. She said that she didn't understand what he was talking about. MC asked with a smile. Then she wouldn't mind if he told the clan leader about it, right? He used the technique again and said that if Head dragged Righteous Wind into the investigation, the information about the strange temple she often visited would come to light. Plus, when the items from the Namong clan were discovered in their storage, it seemed like it would be very interesting. Who knew what her clan would say about all of this then? Seong, with a very worried expression, thought that they would frame her as the culprit, claimed that they themselves didn't know about her connections with the cult, and humiliate her. That's exactly what her clan would do. She lowered her head, trembling out of fear, and said that she was the wife of Thayhead of the Nine Dragons branch clan. There was no way she could be disposed of so easily. He looked at her with an arrogant smile and said that she herself didn't even believe it. It seemed like she couldn't be honest with herself. She still looked at him and asked what he wanted. He extended his hand with a sly smile and said that he was quite a greedy guy. Over the next week, she brought him all sorts of jewelry, a wild silkworm robe, and other jewelry. In an attempt to get these rare items, she did not have time to think about anything else. After that, Wui asked what else could one expect from the famous Namong clan. They have a lot of money. The ghosts looked at him with admiration and said that he had gotten hold of real treasures. He was sure that she was already ruined. This is what Shedakirves for what she had planned against him. He said with a displeased look that it was not for them to talk about it. He took out an object with strong energy from his inside pocket and said that these things were useful. But this was the most important of all. The ghost looked at it and said that it had a very terrifying poisonous energy. What is it? He said that it was a pill made from a one-atune mixture of the poisonous fire herb, dogwood fruit, and a certain type of bacteria. They said that it looked like an ordinary poisonous pill. Is he trying to reach the 6th level off the poisonous dragon cultivation technique? The protagonist agreed and said that he would open his middle dance in and reach the highest level. Bacteria are used as an ingredient in miracle medicines like this. However, if it is used incorrectly, the wrong poisonous bacteria can multiply and begin to destroy the body. Dogwood fruit and the poisonous fire poison herb enhance the poisonous effects of these bacteria, creating this incredibly poisonous pill. This is the best option for him, as someone who has mastered the poisonous dragon cultivation technique. The ghosts said that they now understand what he is trying to do. But it seems that this poison is too strong. Is he confident that his body can handle it? He said that was why he had this. He took out the chi refining divine sphere from his pocket and thought that this was a miracle cure that was supposed to enhance internal energy, and it was secreted by the divine doctor of life and death. First, he would take this to increase his internal energy, This pure energy was spreading throughout his entire body. It was definitely fulfilling its purpose. Now it was Thedern, of the poison pill. According to the elders, this poison was very difficult to digest. With his Currentival and the poison dragon technique, it would be very painful. He ate the pill and felt intense pain, but he continued to absorb the poison energy. The ghosts looked at him and said that they had to look at all this poisonous energy. Master would be okay, right? MC gritted his teeth in pain and thought that the poison was spreading throughout Hai's entire body. He needed to convert the poison into internal energy for the poison dragon technique. He had to concentrate the energy and suck it into his upper Danstian. He was able to do everything correctly, and was happy that he succeeded, and thought that he had reached the 6th level of mastery in the poisonous dragon technique. The ghosts congratulated him and said that he had reached the highest level in just months of martial arts training. He was cultivating faster than everyone else. He thought it was a small thing, but he could feel the pure essence in his middle denture. The peak of dragon mastery. This is the highest level. Gong ran up to him and said that he heard a loud noise and ran here thinking that they had intruders. But now he saw this energy. He looked at him with a smile and asked what he was doing here. When we looked at him and smiled and said that he had received the miracle medicine that Lady Namong had given him. He jumped down to him and said that he didn't know what it was, but he couldn't even imagine how much she had spent on it. Threw him a wooden staff and asked, anyway, doesn't he want to experience how much stronger he has become? Or is he not interested in testing his strength? He caught it and immediately telegated into a fighting stance and said that he was indeed an excellent teacher. He jumped towards him, swung his weapon, and said loudly that he would give it his all. Gong looked at him in surprise and asked, is he already using internal energy on his weapon? He has amazing talent. He responded to his blow and said with a big smile that he had a heavy blow. Then he should try to reflect it. The protagonist stared at him and thought that he could see his movements now. In addition, he could control his body much more freely. They started exchanging many fast blows and wondered, is this what it was like to be at this level of martial arts? He could now see what he saw, if he could use internal energy to control his weapon. He started emitting strong energy with a very serious expression and was about to attack. Gong was surprised when he noticed it. Asked him to wait and asked loudly, does he want Tao's, the strikes of the fierce tiger with a spear? He didn't say anything and started throwing a lot of fast punches which he started blocking. He was thrown back a few meters and said that now he would really have to work hard in duels with him. MC pointed his weapon at him and said that he did. Say that he would make him work until he was exhausted. When they finished the duel, he asked if there had been some rumors going around lately. Did he know about them? This got his attention and he asked what rumor he was talking about. Gong said that people were saying that he and Mrs. Siang had made peace. They also said that he was so touched by her efforts that he even gave up his position as Daihir. Does he even understand what peace means? He assumes that these rumors are because of the gifts she gives him. However, he knows for sure that it is all a lie. He said with a smile that he can't say that he agrees. He used a telepathy technique and said that he needed her to act like this in order to gain an advantage in the fight against the cursed White Skull Master. He also used the technique and asked, who is he talking about? Wait, did he say White Skull Master Esther? Is he talking about the head of the Black Bone Valley? We was surprised by his reaction and said that he thought he had heard about him from the clan head before. He didn't participate at all during the meeting, right? Gong thought about it and said that it made sense. He found out about her being related to them. He thought that his mood changed so much when they talked about the demonic cult. He said that he was talking about fighting him, but the magicians of the Blackbone Valley are very serious about their safety. I looked at him and asked, is he talking about the demonic magic sect? He said with a displeased expression. He already knew about it. Their Jungi are getting stronger in that sect. To be honest, he wasn't confident that he could kill their leader, even if he tried his best. The protagonist said with a little worry that he knew it would be a major failure in their part if he just started a war. He thought that according to spirit number, the forces in the temple now included the 4 death swordsmen and a Jungi, whose skills were comparable to the dead swordsman's. He heard that the cursed master of the White Skull had reached a higher combat level after his death. It seemed like the society had helped him. Gong asked what he was going to do, and if he had a plan. He said with a confident smile that of course he had almost finished preparing. Earlier that night, Sayang had come to his room and begged him on her knees for help. Heist with a smirk. Did she come to him in the middle of the night to ask for help? Some would think he wanted to kill her. It seemed like the name in clan and the temple were after her. She agreed with a very tired look and said that he already knew what situation she was in. The abbot of the temple promised to turn her into a jungi if she did not lead him to the sorcerer who supported him. She was about to say something else with a very worried look, but she stopped. He continued to smile and said that, in that case, a terrible fate awaited her. She said that she would do whatever he said. He asked with a serious expression could she give up her ambition for the position of heir that she had been seeking for so long for her children. She agreed and said that she would persuade her children to give it up. If he wanted, she would make sure that he would never see her again. She begged him to help. He agreed with a wide smile and said that then she would have to do whatever he said. He would do anything to get rid of that demon. First, he needed to make some preparations. At present, he thought that the final stage of his preparation to defeat the cursed master of the White Skull had finally arrived.